What's up, everyone, and welcome back to the Terror Table for episode 136, which just so happens to be our Halloween episode. So this
/ our kid-friendly episode.
Yeah, this is our child-friendly episode, thanks to Buzi last week.
Thanks to Georgia.
So, so first of all, my name is Mitch. You hear me every single week alongside my great... What do I even call you at this point?
I'm a host. What do I don't get that anymore?
Yeah, I guess we'll go with that. Buzi. Last week, if you tuned in, you heard I received some criticisms that I apparently swear a lot on air. We got this criticism. Criticism came in from a 5-year-old that listens to us.
Was it 5?
Yeah, she's 5 years old. I was corrected. Hey, there you go. You're the first one to do this. Yeah, twice now.
Okay,
twice.
All right.
So,
I guess they'll see what it sounds like, or I guess they'll hear what it sounds like.
Yeah, this will be the first time we ever edit an episode, and that's because you chose to do this. So we're gonna have no swearing in this episode. But yeah, we are the Terror Table. We're a horror movie podcast. We talk about horror movies and horror books, comic books, TV shows, everything in the horror genre every single week. And we are a podcast that is presented by the Saskatchewan Podcast Network, who is currently sponsored by Connexus Credit Union. So you can check out Saskatchewan Podcast Network at saskpodcastnetwork.ca on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. And you can find a whole bunch of other cool shows on there. Some of our good friends are on there. Darcy and Jen at 3,000 Movies to Die Before You Watch. Sean Broom at The Story of You. And those are our main OGs right now, I think.
I think so.
Yeah, I think we need to branch out and make some new friends. But those are anyways. We're going to be doing an Evil Dead episode. This is going to be the first time that we do a full episode on the Evil Dead. And we figured that for those of you who have listened over the last couple of weeks, you know that we had been a part of some screenings at the Broadway Theater in which we showed Halloween, and then we also showed The Evil Dead in 4K with the new score. And we were lucky enough to have a guest join us today, and it's a long time coming. We'd like to welcome Skot Hamilton.
Gentlemen, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, so this is Skot Hamilton from the Broadway Theater.
Indeed.
So we got to get into, we're going to do our normal thing. Every time we have a guest on, we get to know about your horror roots, what you do in the genre, and like what it is that you like about it nowadays. Because we've known of each other for a long time. We don't know each other like personally, but
we've just been kind of re-meeting over the last week or so, and actually me being on the podcast at all happened really organically because I started once I start talking about Evil Dead, it's hard to get me to stop, and you just said stop right there. Just come on the podcast.
That's exactly what happened.
A microphone in front of you.
Yeah.
But as it turns out, I was selling you movies that maybe, like, at your age, maybe I shouldn't have been selling you.
Yes. Skot sold me Dead
Scott's
Alive.
That guy.
Yeah. Scott, and like that's so when I was a wee lad, I would ride my bike over to CD Plus. So you worked at CD Plus, which I eventually worked at as well.
Ran that place into the ground.
Yeah, that was the only place I ever got fired from.
Really?
Yeah, it's the only job I've ever been fired from. But then they tried hiring me back a week later. But that's for a different day. But no, I used to go in there all the time, and I'd buy. I would always, because they always had a great horror section. And that Center Mall CD Plus, that's the only place that I could find that had all the Nightmare on Elm Street DVDs. That is where I got my first copies of The Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2 on DVD. But I had to order in Dead Alive on DVD because I couldn't find it anywhere. They didn't have it at any video store. And I think one other guy ordered it in for me, but then you sold it to me and you were like, Dead Alive, a man of taste. And I was like 15 years old.
I wasn't prepared to deny you. Well, if you knew to order it, I mean, you already knew.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. Yeah, and I it's weird because I also I grew up playing in metal bands and going to local shows around the city. And you're also a musician. You're in a band, Adolyne, and you're also in Ken Mode, which are two fucking insanely awesome bands. I was just showing Buzi Ken
we
Mode.
were listening to Ken Mode before he came over.
Ken Mode is just like a unit of just sound. Like Ken Mode rules. Like
we are pure ugliness when we're working. Yes.
Yeah. No, it's the best. Like all of my friends are huge Ken Mode fans, and Adolyne. Yeah, and Adolyne's been around for a long time.
Oh, way too long.
No.
We're like a high school band that never broke up.
That's the best part about it, though. You guys have just somehow still like gotten so like remained. There's been those bands that the high school bands that never give up and they never get better. You guys were good back then, but you just keep getting better.
Oh, thanks. Honestly, we just got back off of, we just did I guess west, east, I always get these confused. We just went out to Vancouver, whatever direction that was in. We were surrounded by needles on East Hastings, and and like, you know, like a couple of rough shows here and there, and I looked at the guys and I was just like, man, I'm so not done playing with you dudes yet. Like I still really love being in that band. So unfortunately I haven't been able to grow up and stop playing with them.
That's awesome.
You
definitely don't have to
enforce that.
Any listeners, we know we have a lot of listeners out there who are into like heavier music and stuff like that. They got to check out Ken Mode and Adolyne. But Ken Mode, like, so first of all, quickly for me, how did that end up happening? Because they're from Winnipeg, correct?
Right. And I've been,
this is a Juno winning band.
Yeah, they actually, to be honest, like, I mean, I guess in the interest of full clarity, they were one of my favorite bands in the country. I love that band. I spent a lot of time while I was working at various record stores pushing that band on people. Like I consider especially in Western Canada, as far as bands with a footprint and artistic intent and you know, getting everything that they want out of their project without ever compromising. I found them so inspiring, and I think that they knew that they had fooled me into thinking that, and that would make me a prime poach to bring into the fold, and that I wouldn't go anywhere, which is what's happened, because we're moving into like my 6th year in that band. But I was a promoter. Like I actually, and it wasn't even that I happened to be in town to get the phone call to put their shows on for them. I was begging them. I was going like, please come to Saskatoon. And then when they finally got here, the shows were good, and they're like, oh, okay, he isn't full of shit. He actually, like, he really digs us. And so I probably did maybe, I don't know, over the years 6 shows maybe for them before they asked me to join. And I mean, I think that I gave them a few scares in terms of like just really not being ready in the early days. But I think they haven't kicked me out yet. I don't know, but that's how that happened. Like I was as shocked as anybody else that they gave me the phone call. Like they knew I was interested, and when I said, like, I said, like, if you guys have somebody outgoing, let me know, because I'm really interested. And I felt foolish for even saying anything. And then eventually, within like a little bit, that turned into a job for me. So
that's awesome, man. That's become a theme actually with our podcast in the last couple of weeks. Is anyone who's thinking about just, like, you know, branching out and trying something new, or like, you know, putting yourself out there, that something good could come out of it, and you ended up in one of the best bands in Canada.
Well, I mean, I don't love them anymore.
No,
well, no, I mean, I can't. It's an easier band to get distance from than Adolyne is. Adolyne is a band that, like, is so close to me that I can't be subjective about that. I've never been able to be subjective about that. Ken Mode, it's a little bit easier to step back and go like, yeah, that record.
Because you saw them before, you're
like disassociating from them.
Well, because I have the benefit of being able to look at what I like about the band, and then actually zone in on that and try to extrapolate from them while working with them, like what I like about them as players and all that type of stuff. But with Adolyne, like, it's so much of it is, you know, step one is me going, okay, we're doing this, and I put so much ugliness and everything into that project that I can't help but hate it by the time we're done with it. But in a way that obviously I haven't killed it, so it's like, again, I just finished doing a tour with those guys and just like shaking my head going, I still love playing in this band. But,
that's awesome. Cool. Well, so we're going to be touching on, like, we touched on the music thing. One thing we haven't touched on yet is that I believe you guys aren't doing any more but reel to reel.
No,
is it still going?
Yeah, it's still going. That's another thing. I don't know how to quit. I don't know how to quit anything.
Yeah, well, the thing is, because I used to listen to reel a lot, and like I just haven't had, like, I'm not driving around the time where you guys put those out anymore.
That's how it works, right?
Because it's an actual radio, it's a CFCR radio show. Previous guests of the show, Tyler Baptist and Craig Silliphant. So with both of those guys, let's talk a little bit how that started happening and like what.
Well, that one was a weird one. Okay, so who started that? It was Amber. Oh my God, I forget her last name. I feel horrible. We got pulled in. It was like it was a bunch of people who almost didn't really at first know each other all that well. Like me and Tyler knew each other very well, but we knew there was another fellow named Steven, another Skot, which got confusing. And it was the 5 of us for quite a few years, and then gradually the group changed a little bit.
Him, didn't you?
Yeah, you know, I mean, I mean, with my prowess, certainly.
There could only be one Skot here.
Oh, that poor guy. I actually miss the past hosts because it's interesting when you analyze things next to other people for so long. I'm sure you guys will find this when like you're not analyzing things side by side. You start missing that particular eye that's always next to you, who's noticing a particular type of things. So I'm now thinking about that. Like that's years ago, guys. Like I think that was probably 10 years ago almost. I don't keep track of that stuff because it depresses me. It makes me realize how old I'm getting. But that show has been going for a very, very, very long time. And yeah, me and Tyler are the only holdovers from that. It's actually just down to 3 hosts now. We usually try to have 5, but Craig he's doing another show now. And it's kind of hard to keep up with when it's just down to 3 folks, because I've been doing another, like I do another radio show on CFCR as well, called the End Times Transmissions on Thursday nights, and I've been doing that show for at least 7 years or something, maybe more like 8. Oh my God, I'm so old. So like it's sometimes like I mean seeing a movie a week is not that difficult, and like I can do a hot 30 minutes on any one movie. I actually prefer to have more time. Like I don't like when we have like 5 movies we're trying to get to. I don't actually think it's a very I like really put, especially if I hate the movie. You want to actually
delve into it.
Oh, I would just want to crucify bad movies. So that's those are the fun shows to do. But yeah, that's been on for years and years, and like I mean, same format. It's just film review. We barely do anything else. We sometimes have guests on, but yeah, it's been a while since we've even done that. Most of it, and I mean, I'm getting grumpy. So it's kind of like very good chance if you tune into that show, it's just like me and Tyler savaging a movie.
Do you find it hard to like separate that when you like go home to try and live your regular? Because I feel I think about that sometimes where like I can't go away and watch a movie and not think about it in a terror table aspect of how I could talk about it.
A little
Do you know what I mean? Like it's hard to just sit. I can't just go watch like the new Rambo movie and not think about like, well, Mitch likes Rambo, so Mitch is going to want to talk about Rambo. Like, that's a...
Luckily, I haven't seen the new Rambo. So
just as an example.
Yeah, that's a horrible example, but I like it.
I think that's the last movie that I absolutely decimated. Just like, that's very topical.
I still haven't seen it.
It's tough, I
believe it's horrible.
I like the series a lot. I really do. I like the series.
I've heard this new one is rough.
But no, I think... you know what? I don't really believe in that being a negative thing, though. Like, eventually that's just who you are, and that's just how you analyze art. Like for me, the carryover, the blurry lines between like music, film, being in a gallery, all that stuff, like gradually over time, and actually that totally comes back to Evil Dead. Gradually, to me, everything's gotten very, very blurry and very fluid. I don't really. I'm kind of analyzing everything all the time a little bit, and that's the lens. That's the constant lens.
You just become the T1000 with the little.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's just For me, a lot of it has to do with just like curating your life. Like there is too much, and this sounds really positive, and I don't mean to be too positive, but there's too much quality stuff in the world for me to be wasting my time on like just nonsense. Like I want every movie I sit down to be for it to be good. If I think it's going to be bad, I want it to surprise me, so I can always sit down with a clean slate.
So you don't want to have that wasted investment.
No,
because there
I can't wait to get
so
to that point.
Much stuff.
Yeah, there really is, and like I don't eventually like you start knowing, like, I mean, there's certain nonsense that I have a real appetite for, so I keep on that's like just a particular kind of artistic junk food that really like.
Okay, what's your artistic junk food?
What's a good example of something like that? Well, no, okay, you know what? I almost take that back almost immediately. Like, there's just certain things like I think that certain gore movies. Let's use that as an example. Okay. I think that in a lot of cases, from an artistic standpoint, narrative standpoint, they're not top quality. But
that's not what they're supposed to be. But like, that's not what they're set up to make.
As long as the workmanship that went into the actual visual spectacle is something that impresses me, then it was.
You can forgive all the other stuff.
It wasn't wasted time. I don't even forgive it necessarily. I just go, that director's real garbage, but that effects team is really something special. And so I can always look at that. I can always look at the pieces, like it's like looking at a car and going like, I mean, this car is junk, but look at that engine. Like, I mean, it's, like which again makes me sound almost too positive, which is not on brand for me. But like, I mean, I do like to assess the pieces, and I can, or like, I'm always up for a good performance in a bad movie. It's never lost on me. So do I think I would have gotten to that point without doing reel to reel? Probably not. So I do think that, I think analytical, you just have to, your analytical eye you have to find a way to make it benefit your day-to-day living experience. Otherwise, you're
it's what makes it more exciting when something really special comes along, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like that's what I find that's most beneficial about doing the show like this.
Yeah, when you find something that you really are enjoying, and as it's being fed to you, you're just like, you're doing everything right. It is like it's like a weird foreplay, or like it's just hitting buttons. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, yep, that hit that button, it hit that one.
Well, foreplay is dead on because it's stimulation, right? You're being stimulated, and all the it's hitting all it's tickling you in all the right ways, right? Yeah. It's very particular.
It's 100%.
It's like person to person. It's very particular.
Yes. That's why Krull was one that worked very well for Buzi and I, but that's one that doesn't work. That's like a type of junk food that doesn't work for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Like, have you seen that new Krull?
The new one? Oh, no.
Like Krull, the alligator movie?
Oh, Crawl. I thought you were saying Crawl. Like
no, Crawl. No, that's a great movie, though.
No, I haven't seen Crawl yet. I actually, that one ended up getting a decent review on our show from somebody who I didn't think was going to like it at all. But, I mean, I've only, his name's Logan McCormick. He's one of our other regulars. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
We're regulars. He's been a host on the show for like 5 years. He actually, I didn't anticipate that he was, it just doesn't seem like a Logan type movie. But also, see, he's somebody who I know, that's the big thing about criticism, and especially if you guys ever end up like encountering anybody who, like, people, I find that especially artists have a tendency to get really upset with critics, and they always get into that lame territory of going like, oh, critics have no business judging anything. All they ever do is all they do is criticize. I don't, that doesn't wash for me. I don't dig it. I think that it's kind of silly. I think that criticism has kind of descended into like just internet, like petty internet style opinion having, and less into an art form. But it was completely an art form at one point, and some people do still have, I mean, I don't like my favorite critics, like I don't always agree with them. I'm not supposed to. You get to know the voice, you get to know the person who has the opinion, and you get to know what it is they dig and don't, and like
you can respect when they don't like something.
Yeah, absolutely. And if they start saying like, oh, this movie was really, really poor, this is why, and then you go like, oh yeah, but I always disagree with this person on this stuff. So I mean, as long as
you're okay with whatever amount you're being given.
I think the criticism is like, it's completely necessary. I think it's in a bad way right now. I do think that like just I don't like, I mean, general access to the public should never be a bad thing, but I do think that everyone thinks that I mean, a lot of people who fancy themselves critics don't recognize the difference between their very clunky opinion versus the very, read and very honed weapon of that is a critic's opinion. Like there's a very big difference.
And that's what separates people like Buzi and I to like people who actually do study this.
People.
No, and like that, but that's the thing is that I agree with you, and like I have my critics who I follow, and like I even like Craig Silliphant, good friend of ours. He wrote a scathing review on Scream, one of my favorite.
And we're
movies.
not happy.
And the guy gave it like a 2 out of 5 on Letterboxd.
The original, on Letterboxd.
Yeah, like
really?
This has been a thing that's been going on for a couple of days now. And like I was texting him about it today. But it's like, you know what? I respect Craig's opinion, and I know where his view is coming from. And like, Craig doesn't like slasher movies. Craig he didn't like wasn't attached to those types of slasher movies growing up. So of course that movie's not going to like get him excited the way that it did me, who would go and rent every single Friday the 13th movie I could find when I was a kid.
Right.
But then there's I know, like I'm going to be talking about The Lighthouse today. That's a movie that I'm like, I can't wait to hear what Craig thinks of that, because like that's a movie that I think him and I are probably going to have a 2-hour conversation about. But that's like just knowing about like what to expect from certain people. And I don't know, I'm all for criticism, obviously. Like
that's the whole basis of our platform is a form of criticism.
Well, I've been in a weird spot with that as somebody who's like being an actual content generator, and occasionally having to well, the first record I did with Ken Mode was like, it got really like, the reviews were really polarized. They were like, some people really dug it, but it was a really big departure for the band. And so I had a lot of people going like, are you like, you know, I saw you know, the Pitchfork review or whatever, and what did you think about that? And I just shrugged and I just said, well, dude didn't like it. What do you, I don't know. That's the end of the story. I mean, I don't know what to do with that. Like, it doesn't bother me. It can't. I mean, what are you making art for if you're letting? I think it's interesting. I didn't read it and take nothing. You know,
I think it's worse if you don't have any criticism. Nobody's listening.
Yeah, it means no one's critically listening to what you're doing.
The only thing that annoys me involving criticism, and sorry, we can move on from this after just to keep things rolling here. But the only thing that annoys me with the whole criticism debate right now is that everything's either the best or the worst.
Yes, 100%.
That's what drives me the craziest. It's just like, you know, just because I didn't think this was the best movie of the year means, oh, Mitch kind of fucking hated it. And it's just like, no.
And it's no worse anywhere in the world than in the horror community. They are so big on best ever, worst ever. Yeah. I've said that 100 times. It drives me
hyperbolic as shit.
Yeah. Well, because there's no room to go like, this could have been better or this could have been worse or whatever. Or like I was saying, like, you know, bad movie, great performance. Like there's it's all gray area.
Yeah. But then there's also, like, sorry to go back to this again, but like I mentioned Krull. I think Krull is a great movie to have this conversation about, where it's like, it's not the kind of movie that you can take overly seriously. It's an alligator movie. It did exactly what it set out to do, and it did it pretty fucking well. Mm-hmm. That's perfectly fine. That's good. That's a good review for me. But some people are just like, oh, I think you're being a little too nice on that one. It's just not. It's not like that's any Midsommar or anything. It's like, well, I liked it more than Midsommar, and it might be a completely different kind of movie, you know.
That's a preposterous assertion.
I know.
That's bananas.
Yeah, but people think differently. There's a lot of strange people.
Come on.
Okay, let's learn a little bit about younger you. What made you a horror fan? What were your big first moments? Do you have like a favorite icon in any of the series, that sort of thing?
Well, I think that for me a really big one, and it's someone. Okay, so
I want you to go back to the start.
Yeah, for me the first one for me, and this is very, very significant, was because I spent a lot of time harping at my parents. This is probably like an old story, but my video haunt was family video at the across the street from Eden Bowman Collegiate.
Yes.
Taylor. And
I lived close there too.
Yeah. That was my big spot. There was also Avalon Video, which was kind of more
closer to Broadway.
Do you guys remember like the pink cases and everything there? That was a very particular spot. That's when I figured out about that place. That was when I started going like, oh yeah, this guy's not paying any attention how
right
old
by
I
the
am.
Sarcan.
Get what exactly.
Yep.
Well, yeah, you'd go trade your bottles and get movies. Yeah, 100%. But I spent a lot of time harping at my parents to let me rent whatever I could as far as horror stuff was concerned. And I remember I don't remember what age I was. I remember really young. They wouldn't let me they'd let me rent like horror adjacent stuff. I remember getting the Thriller featurette VHS, which I mean,
I did that too.
That was probably my first John Landis thing, right? So it could be worse.
That's fair.
And actually, when I was at TIFF a few years ago, I saw that in 3D. Didn't need a 3D refurbish, as it turns out. But so many of my pivotal moments revolve around that video store. That was one of the first ones I remember. But I remember the first proper horror flick or at least the one that made a really big impression on me and ended up in more ways than one was Nightmare 3.
Yeah,
Nightmare on Elm Street 3. And
Mitch likes you even more now.
Yes,
so.
That's one of my favorites.
Of the proper sequels, that one's probably my favorite sequel.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
But and it still is, and I think that with a more learned mind, I continue it maintains its place. I think Nightmare 2 I used to hate, but now
I kind of love it now.
Exactly, with all the subtext and everything like that. But I needed all of that in order to find a way to make me love it, right? Whereas 3 is a lot of instant gratification. And as a kid especially, I think that it was just scary enough that it didn't stop me from watching, but it was so consistent. It dealt with imagination in such a way that at that age stimulated me so much. But also on the VHS, it had the Doc and Dream Warriors video on it, and I was like a budding like metalhead, and so seeing those things tied together, I thought that was like the coolest thing in the world, and that was my easy in for both of those. So when
this sounds like the start to like Tenacious D, like, when you're like renting it and watching like Dawkins and shit.
See, and I got in bad habits though, because I rented that one like over and over again.
Right.
And I think the next title, the next title I got obsessed with, which again all roads lead back to Evil Dead. There's a reason, I guess, why I'm on today. Was when Army of Darkness came out, and I had to wait to see it on VHS. But they would rent that one to me at that store, and I rented that movie so many times that they eventually sold me the copy off the rack because I was renting it every week, and they just gave up on renting it to me.
I've been that guy. Yeah.
Oh yeah, you've had that.
I get
before?
that. Yeah.
And
that was
we're
me and Snow Day.
Yeah, I think I can't remember what fucking movie it was. I rented this movie like 3 times in a row, and they're like, "You're literally the only person who's ever rented this. Do you want to buy it? It's for the same price to rent it."
It was White
I was
Chicks.
like, yes.
It was that Damon Wayans movie.
Well, see, and with me, I didn't like. I was blocking other people from renting it because I had it for 7 days. Like I would always do, like they had the 7 for 7 for 7, and one of my 7 was always Army of Darkness because I knew I was going to watch it 3 times, and so they eventually were just like, "Well, this is stupid. Just like buy it." And I still have the copy. Like it was their one store copy, but it was always at my house. So like that was I think
a
like,
really cool thing to have.
Yeah.
Is that the plastic case and everything?
They didn't sell it to me with a plastic case. No, it's without. But yeah, it's still the same. The same one. Like I still know. Like
does this have the sticker on it?
Yeah. It has the little restricted sticker on it, like the one that they actually, the ones that they put on the front. Yeah. It's I mean I'll never get rid of that thing. So like that one was a really, really big one. I mean, to me that doesn't even feel like a horror movie proper. Like, and I didn't know what the hell I was getting into in terms of when I would finally find my way back to Evil Dead, but that one was that felt like my movie so much that because my friends didn't really get it. They weren't on the wavelength. But anyways,
did you do Army of Darkness first as well?
I did.
That was me as well.
Yeah. Well, did you even know about the other movies?
I didn't know about our Evil Dead until after Army of Darkness.
Like I still remember when they were running ads for Army of Darkness, and just thinking it was some crazy movie. Yeah. And even though I read the back says Bruce Campbell reprising his role from the Evil Dead series, I didn't as a kid.
Click.
Well, I didn't even know what the most supposed to mean.
Confusing franchise too, because when you do eventually go back, you're like, wait a second, this is fucking nothing like Army of Darkness.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's what shocked me so much when I finally found my way back. But so that was another huge one for me. Like, I mean, I shouldn't have even mentioned the Thriller thing. It's not that. No,
that's legit. That was my family. My family was we were big on Thriller as well.
But like the thing was once my mom, especially, I was my mom. Once she realized there's no keeping it out of the house, she just had them put a note on our account saying like, you can rent whatever he wants, and then it was like it was toast. It was just like that's all I did was rent horror movies.
Yeah, my parents they would get just pissed because they'd be getting bothered at work. They'd be like, Mitch wants to rent what? And it's just like, just let him fucking rent it. It's like Freddy's dead again.
I saw that in theater on first run.
Freddy's dead.
Yeah, with the 3D glasses and everything like that. That was the only or of the original, the original movies. That was the only one that I actually saw on original run. I was really young when I saw that.
That sucks.
Yeah.
I didn't get to see any of them like an original run, but like to only. Well, I guess that's better than nothing. Freddy's dead.
It's better than nothing. It's better than nothing. And I mean, if you're ever going to be entertained by that movie, it's going to be when you're like 9 or 10 or whatever. With
Breckenmeyer.
But yeah, like, so I mean, I guess so to slightly go back as far as like the early icons, Freddy Krueger was a really, really big one for me, and I still to this day, just when he's like, when you're stacking him up to other icons, I think that there's too much thought, and there's too much there really is too much intellect injected into him as a character for him to fail against other.
It's unfair to put him next to other ones.
He really is.
It's like that's why when we did our Halloween series, I'm like, Michael Myers is my favorite if we're not including Freddy.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, but because you can't put Freddy and Michael next to each other. They're so different.
Well, he's an outlier. He's like, and anything that tries to get back to behaving a little bit more like him smacks of trying to be Freddy Krueger, and there's just no point, because even at his worst, he's I mean, they kind of touch on that and things like, in New Nightmare, where like, I mean, eventually he wasn't him anymore. And I agree with that, because I can still be subjective and take a step back and go like, man, Nightmare 1 is really, really scary. And he was a scary character, and I like that about him. It's the same way that I like Evil Dead. I find Evil Dead to be a scary film.
I agree.
And I can step away from the fact that I know what happens and enjoy. Like, I mean, I liked the TV show even, but I mean, I can still, when I step into Evil Dead, the fact that I know where this is going in terms of canon later on doesn't ever get to me.
Those are like the two franchises that aren't tarnished by their futures. Predecessors and successors are Nightmare and Evil Dead. Is that they can't touch each other. Like, but then we talk about like Friday the 13th. I love Friday the 13th, but I can't look. I think of all of them as goofy.
They're very silly. Well,
like,
certainly, yes.
I can't even look at like even the original Friday the 13th. I can't think of that alongside the original Nightmare on Elm Street or Evil Dead.
There isn't really like, I mean, again, I hate to like bring in the word intellectually, but like intellectually, like Friday the 13th is absolutely not operating on the same wavelength as something like Nightmare on Elm Street, which arguably, like in production, even like some of the gags they didn't work. Like there's things about it that don't entirely quote unquote work about it. But as an entire piece and as like something that kind of washes over you, and in its intent, it's trying, like to even call it a slasher movie is like, I mean, that's below it.
Yeah,
the original Nightmare is just, it's an intelligent film.
Just like, imagine if it had just like a bit better of an ending.
Well, I mean,
that's the only thing that's missing.
You know, there's the Shay Craven arguments, right? Like if I don't think either one of them had it right, but they both kind of they both had it wrong. I don't know, like, I mean, that was not a satisfactory way of pulling, you know, the blow up doll. I don't know how they ever thought that was a solution or a meeting in the middle. I don't know how anyone's really happy with that, but.
No, either way, okay, that's awesome. So I totally I railroaded you hard there while you were talking. I just got excited. Did you have any other questions?
I think that's all I had.
All right, so we can just keep moving on from here. So before we get on to what we've been seeing, so you are you work for the Broadway Theater.
Yes.
So we've been like the last couple episodes, we've been hyping up that we're lucky enough to be a part of these the Halloween screening and the Evil Dead screening with the Broadway Theater, and Buzi and I have recently joined the Saskatoon Fantastic Film Festival team. Can you explain to our listeners, now that we've had John Allison's been on the show, Tyler Baptist, all like people who have been involved in the film festival before have been on here. Explain your role with the Broadway Theater and what it is, because in reality, you're the one who got you're the one who got Halloween, and you're the one who got Evil Dead, and you're the one who made all this happen.
Well, see, this was really good timing that you guys came into the fold, because ultimately those movies were off market. Like, one of the things people don't understand about doing, especially rep house screenings, is they go like, oh, you know, it's easy, run Halloween every Halloween. It's like, well, no, it's not legal. You can't just run whatever you want.
You'd be surprised how many people like have no concept of that.
Zero.
Why don't you just put on another movie? It's like, it doesn't work like that.
No, and like there's definitely markets where, I mean, I keep my eye on them, not because I'm like gonna narc on them, but there's other theaters that, because I'm always looking for rights. So if somebody's tracked down the rights for like Suspiria or something like that, I want to find out where they got them from. So I'll email them and say, hey, what's going on? Suspiria, I wouldn't, those, right, actually, I'm glad I use that as an example, because those are accessible. So, you know, I reach out to somebody and say, hey, who's got those right now? And they can tell me. But if, you know, there's a movie that they're running that I reach out to them and they'll just go like, yeah, we're running that one dirty, so keep it on, you know, keep it DL, because we don't, and people do that all the time, because there's a very particular set of circumstances. Well, it just needs to be an interested party that rats you out, is how it works. We're running clean. We're trying to make sure that we only bring stuff in that we don't, you know, we want to make sure everyone's getting paid and all that good stuff. So like you guys coming in and injecting interest into those screenings was perfect timing, because Halloween has, I mean, of course I've wanted to run Halloween ever since I started working at the place, but it hasn't been on the market. This year's the year that they just did that refurb with their cinematographer, so it just happened to go back up, and Evil Dead just got its 4K restoration. So Evil Dead was accessible a few years ago. Like, I've run that a few times, but it like the timing was perfect for you guys to come on. So yeah, basically like what I do, at least according to my according to my business card, as I'm the film programmer at the theater. For people who don't know about the Broadway Theater, we're a community-owned arts and culture center, so that means we're anything and everything people want us to be. We're there for the community. That includes concerts, that's theater, that's like anything that can go on. And that eats into a lot of time that would be otherwise movie time. Like, you know, for years and years and years, it was just an independent like film house. It's hard to keep one of those going now, though. It's just not an easy ask. So
yeah, things have changed.
Things have changed in a huge way. And if you go out to, you know, if you do, like I've been out to conferences and stuff like that, and the big message, the big takeaway from all those is evolve or die. If you want to hold on with, you know, like if you really, really want to hold on to the dream and like just presume that independent film is going to weather the storm of how the industry's changed, more power to you, man, because like I love movies and I want nothing more than to just program films. I don't want to do anything else, but it's not the reality. The reality is because we do so many other things at the theater, we're going to be able to continue to actually run movies for years to come, right? Like,
so it's basically just like a multi-center at this point, as opposed to just a straight-up theater.
Yeah, and that's
awesome. Like my sister is a part of the Summer Players and everything, and she was part of the Little Shop of Horrors.
Such a good production.
Yeah, and she loves the Broadway theater. Yeah. And like everyone in the city loves Broadway theater. Like, it's a great place to have. The place is popping.
Well, yeah, I hope so. Like, well, and I mean, like we do, like we create the content, which is a huge thing too. We don't like a really, really big thing about it is if we just sat around hoping it was going to come to us, then we wouldn't be open. But we come up with the ideas. Like, a lot of the weird stuff we've done that have been big successes have all been things that we were the ones, like, we reached out and we put the shit on. And a lot of that feeds back into the film stuff, though. So with Saskatoon Fantastic, like John's been doing it for years, and we could, you know, we always were in close contact with him on it, and we kind of finally just said, like, look, man, like, this is a big financial strain, this is a lot of stress and everything like that. We could own the thing, but we need your expertise, and we need to surround ourselves with good people who know what they're doing and are connected. And so the way the festival works is the Broadway owns the festival now, but we don't want to distance ourselves from anything that it's been doing, because we wanted to take it on because we thought it was special, and we wanted to encourage it, and we wanted John to feel some relief so he can be his best.
Can you imagine that? Like, that'd be so like, just because we've only gotten to know John really well over the last couple of months, and like, you'd be a crazy person to let a guy like John go. Like, when you have that guy with that kind of passion and that drive,
tenacity.
The guy's got ideas, and he's just a great dude, and he's so passionate about it all, and he does it all out of the goodness of his heart. Like, he loves doing it. Yeah, he just loves this stuff.
Well, that's completely cut from the cloth that we're doing it for, because we're an NPO. We're not making a ton of money doing the stuff we're doing, and we hustle every day. Yeah, but it's because we're working on things that are important to us, and we are doing stuff that we think is valuable to the community, and because we give a shit about the community, we ask them, what do you want? What is it that you want in here? And like, I mean, a lot of the time, like, I mean, if that railroads anybody, it's me, because it means that I don't get to put a bid out on a big movie I want, because we end up like, oh, look at the calendar, we only have like 7 days open this year, this month, where we actually have room for film. That's a bummer. But also, when everything shakes down and film continues to do what it's doing, we're going to be able to be standing to run great films still, no matter what happens. And I mean, I'm satisfied with that.
No kidding.
So I think everyone should be, because it is a shame that a lot more of facilities like that have gone over the years, right? So I mean, it makes it less competition for you guys, but at the same breath, it's like, if that was to ever go away completely, I think people would really miss that.
Oh yeah,
it's part of the community, and that's huge, because if people are going to the, like, let's just say, for example, like digital, because digital killed so much of the theater industry.
Sure
it's
did.
Like, you know, what's going to happen if, like, there's never any more theaters for people to go? They're just going to fucking sit at home, and no one's going to enjoy that. Like,
yeah, people don't know what some people don't even know what the communal experience of seeing, especially like a good solid.
And that's
like,
what really bothers me. Is that people are missing that.
I've been scared that it's going that route because, like, you know, it just seems like that's the next logical route because of the way that, you know, piracy has led everyone. Like, video stores are gone, the streaming services have led everything. Everyone can just watch things on Netflix or whatever. I think like the next step is that theaters are going to go away, but we just keep getting new theaters, like these brand new theaters, but that's
I'm glad that there's always going to be a section of people though who actively want to go out and check out movies.
Because as long as there's people out there who are still loving movies, they're going to want to go and see these movies especially at theaters like Broadway and stuff. Because even John and I were talking about this before Halloween. He went and saw the Lighthouse like before we showed Halloween that day, and he was saying that he's just like if you can imagine, like the people, he apparently was in a theater full of annoying people in the Lighthouse. It's like, how does that happen? How do people walk into a black and white movie that's filmed in full screen and they talk throughout the movie? Like,
he said they were all on their phones.
Yeah, how does that even happen? It's like that movie, the marketing is foolproof. It's like, let's keep these fuckers out of here.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from, and like I'll probably take a lot of flack for saying this, but like even my worst theater experience is still a good experience for me because I like going to the theater.
Yeah,
I like all aspects of it, even if I have to sit through something awful or something.
It's because you're usually the bad theater experience. You're usually the one laughing at the movie I like.
My seat. But you know what I mean? Like what I'm saying is like I would rather go see something in theaters than have to sit. There's like no novelty when it comes to like just something comes up on Netflix and I want to watch it. I'll never get that same endorphin rush of just going to a fucking theater.
You're engaging when you go to a theater.
Yes.
You're making the decision to engage with that because again, I don't make the delineation between like when it comes to music, cinema, blah blah blah, all that stuff. It's art. This may as well be a Francis Bacon painting on the wall to me, right? And that's the optimal circumstance to watch a movie is in the theater because you are saying like, okay, everything else ends. I leave everything at the door. I watch the movie.
You've made it a commitment.
Yeah, it's the same as it's the same as, you know, the difference between Spotify and actually putting on a record.
Yeah.
When you go, it's ritual. It's invoking something. It's important.
I think ritual is like the perfect word for that.
Yeah. No. I think about these things. It is you're making a decision. You're curating your life at that point, and you're also supporting something. You make a lot of decisions. A lot of things get you through the door to go see a movie, and not a lot really seems to get someone to turn something on Netflix, which again, like I try not to be an old man about it and be like, oh, it's like, because things change. Like even you mentioned like all the video stores closing down, but at one point all of the theater owners were all bemoaning the advent of VHS because they were going to be run out of business, right?
Did you see this? We're all fucked.
Especially guys making porn. And they were right at least, but like I mean, it's, you know, like I mean, things just they change, and so I mean, I try to be realistic about that. If I'm going to sit around, if I spend a bunch of time sitting around bemoaning Netflix or whatever, then I mean I'm gonna lose a bunch of time and I won't have my eye on the ball. Like I'm
not bemoaning Netflix.
Oh, no,
I'm bemoaning the actual act of watching it. Yeah. There's too much of a disconnect there.
Yeah,
I can enjoy movies I watch on Netflix. I don't enjoy the experience to the same extent if I was to go see it at a theater.
Which is, and again, this is another. This kind of works its way back more via my like record collecting habits because that's one of the things that I spend my money on. But if I see something, for instance, on Netflix, I mean, does that mean that I'm not going to, given the chance, go see it in the theater? No, it means I'm a little bit more hungry to see it in the theater, right? Like if I really, really fell into the palm of something and I'm like, man, this was really good, it means I want a theater experience with it. The same way if I'm like, I don't know, I'm in someone's car and there's something on the, or maybe a car is a bad example. If there's a Spotify playlist or something and I end up finding out I really like an artist, I haven't heard that record until I take it home and engage with the record. I put it on and I focus on it, and for me that's putting it on the turntable. So I mean, obviously the opportunity to do that with movies is just such that, like, I mean, there's lots of great movies that have come out in the last like 15 years that I'll probably never get the chance to see, but in the theater. But again, VHS days, there's a lot of movies that went straight to video that never did theatrical then too. Like, I mean, I I definitely endorse it as like, I mean, I would, I guess, right? But I endorse it as I think the optimal viewing experience is always going to be the theater. I think there's a lot of reasons for it.
There's like stuff on Netflix that's on there that I know has been on there for a long time, and I'll still buy a physical copy of it because it's the exact same idea as you're getting it with the record. Is like you need to like, it has to be tangible. You have to have some sort of connection with it.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, then you want to know that you always have a copy of it. Like Jeff and I were having this conversation the other night where I put the Wishmaster collection in my Amazon cart. So that's all 5 Wishmaster movies.
Of course you
and it's like,
would.
okay, why do I... Okay, so I have to ask myself, why do I need to own all of these Wishmaster movies? It's like, well, I might get the urge to watch Wishmaster 3 live in Las Vegas or whatever the fuck they're called.
What
at that
if
point.
outside of the physical copies that are out there right now, it disappears?
Yeah, exactly. I was like, what if I have a child and he grows up and he or she wants to watch the Wishmaster movies? I need to make sure I have a copy of it.
That's 100% legitimate, though, because we don't know how this is going. Like, I mean, not to get too political, but I mean, we've seen what Disney's doing.
It's true, yeah.
What happens when everything's in the vault all of a sudden?
What happens when Disney takes Wishmaster?
Yeah,
from me?
No. Whatever company, who owns Wishmaster?
I have no
Doesn't
idea.
matter, whatever.
Yeah.
But what happens when the parent company of the company that owns Wishmaster falls into the purview of Disney all of a sudden, and it's in the vault, and we know that nobody at Disney gives a shit about the Wishmaster movies coming out.
They're just sitting there getting fat on their thrones.
You can't show it to your kids.
Yeah, exactly.
So, no, I think that's a legitimate concern.
Yeah,
I think it's a completely legitimate concern.
That's why I'm going crazy with my collecting. So with all of that being said, I guess we can just openly talk about, we'll obviously talk about the Evil Dead in the main feature here when we get into all that. Do you guys want to talk about the Halloween screening first? Because we were all there for that. So let's talk about that and how that went, and then we'll just get into what we've been seeing in general. So anything you want to mention that you've seen recently that's worth talking about. But yeah, so on last Thursday, October 24th, we showed Halloween, John Carpenter's Halloween. So, Buzi, do you want to go first? Like, how was this? So, was this your first time seeing it on the big screen too, Scott?
It was on the big screen. Yeah. No. I was supposed to see it one other time when I was much younger, and I actually didn't. Okay, I take it back. It was my first time. Yeah, it was my first time.
It was also my first time seeing it there. Yeah. Definitely a little bit of a... it was kind of... I felt a little bit guilty that we chose to do that one first, because, like, of course we were going to choose that. Do you know what I mean? Like, it was fitting.
Yeah, it's just known among, like, people who listen to the Terror Table. People know that Buzi and I are big fans of the Halloween franchise. Like, we especially love that original. We love Halloween 2. Buzi's wearing a Halloween 2 sweater right now. But we love most of that old school franchise, but especially that original. So that was the first time I got to see it on the big screen. That movie played a huge role in my horror upbringing, so it was really cool to see it on the big screen. I know it was a big deal for me because obviously this is the first official screening I had been a part of, and
in any capacity for myself.
And I'm even hesitant. Like, obviously, all of the credit truly goes towards Skot and the Broadway Theater and John and Dark Bridges, everyone who like actually put in the effort to get these. Like, where you're the one who reached out and. Can you give like our listeners like a brief synopsis or a brief idea of what it looks like to try and get these movies played on the big screen?
Again, we were just really lucky that this was the year that it finally, like, that it was out and ready to go again, because otherwise I would have had to have told you guys, like, well, I'll do some digging around and see if anybody's showing it this year. And again, were we under different circumstances, maybe we would be, if we were feeling like misbehaving, we could have just run the thing and hoped that nobody found out, because I don't know who would have. I mean, it all comes down to, like, who's gonna sue you if you do this, and I'm not sure who it would have been, but like, we were just lucky that it happened. It was very accessible. It was easy to find, because sometimes I'm digging around for a couple of months just trying to, like, get find one company. Like, the best example is for years and years, and I think this might have changed recently, but Spinal Tap was owned by like one dude in the States who was charging a serious premium, like a $2,000 screening fee or something, for anyone who wanted to run it. And I think that's just recently changed. Maybe the guy died or something like that, but I mean, sometimes it just you run it down to some guy who's sitting on the rights somehow who got his hands on it. A lot of the time it's I mean, it can be easy, it can be very difficult, but there's just it's a series of like bouncing around and hoping that somebody at the studio is going to return an email. They definitely won't return your phone calls, but they'll you know, it's hoping someone will get back to you, because a lot of the time it's not that you find out that like sometimes they'll tell you, oh yeah, the rights are out right now because of X, Y, or Z. There's a, you know, particular reason, like, you know, when the new Alien movie comes out, or new Mad Max movie, when that movie came out, they pulled the rights to all their Mad Max movies for whatever reason. So, you know, around that time, you're not going to get a chance to show Road Warrior, that what have you. So
like even last year it probably would have been harder to show this with Halloween 2018 coming
100%. And I think the real reason why they even did, I think this, I mean, not to make it, I don't want to denigrate the fact that they re-released it, but like, I mean, I also wouldn't go so far as to say it wasn't maybe a cash grab on someone's behalf, going like, man, Halloween is back in the lexicon, people care again in a 100%. Big way. So I think that, I mean, again, that shows like that's the immediate impact of how you vote with your wallet, right? If you want to see more Halloween stuff, you support Halloween stuff when it comes out. I mean, for me, like, I'm not to get into that too far, but like, I mean, I wasn't a big fan, to be honest, of the latest installment, but like, if you know, $10 that I spent helped get this to happen, I'm more than happy to have you know, been a part of that. And as far as it being like us, like, I mean, I did, you know, some of the chasing it all down, certainly, you know, I did that, but as I said off the top of the program, like, without invested interest, there is no me doing this, because like with people like John and people like you guys coming on is such, like, and being involved in what we're doing is a godsend, because you can't pay for enthusiasm. You can't force someone to be interested in something. And so when it comes to niche interest, like, having people who want to make things happen, that's gold. Yeah, there's no way around it. It's everyone working together. That's totally. You will not be able to twist my arm.
Are you complimenting us?
Absolutely.
I think I can speak for Buzi and myself here in saying that, like, this has been something, like, we've both been super excited for this, like, super excited, and like to see to roll up to Broadway theater, a theater that I've been to thousands of times before, and to see Halloween on the like on the board outside, and to see it right next to the Saskatoon Fantastic Film Festival stuff, to see it up on, like, what am I thinking of here? What I'm drawing a blank on, like, where you
on
the marquee. Sorry, Jesus.
No.
But like, that was just like, I took a picture and I was like, wow, something flew into my eye right there. Yeah, because like, for me, I was like, hey, I played a little tiny role.
Well, I think it kind of feeds into, like, this is what we would always wanted to do since we were, like, young enough to fathom the idea of doing it. So for it to actually happen at some point in our life is pretty fucking cool.
Truthfully, Buzi and I have talked amongst ourselves, saying like, hey, hopefully people show up, but we're really just hoping to see Halloween on the big screen for ourselves. Well,
and when it comes to screening, in a lot of cases, like, that is the best way to do it, because you want to make sure that even if it ends up being a bad night to do it, that you are going to still be able to sit down and enjoy seeing it and go like, that was worth it.
Yeah, like, and it was a decent turnout.
Yeah,
it was a very decent turnout. And yeah, so thank you so much to everyone who came out. I know we got to meet a whole bunch of different locals, like people. I got to speak with a whole bunch of people who I've never met before. Other local like-minded people who are big horror fans. Got to talk about the show a little bit. I think some of them said they were going to check out the show, so that's cool. But I mainly just wanted to meet more people in our city who are into this stuff, and that's really cool.
Because you know they're out there, but it's like, how do you connect to them?
Mm-hmm. But I didn't know there was this many in Saskatoon. Like, if that makes any sense. Like, I don't know. I you know, you get that idea in your head that we're this small. You know, even I'm guilty of saying it, like, we're the butthole of Canada is what I say sometimes. But you know what? We have a pretty great art scene here, and we have people who show up for these things.
We punch far above our weight. Like, I mean, not speaking, I guess, to my time at the Broadway, Saskatoon actually has a reputation for our size, for going above and beyond, and like drawing in numbers. Like, this is more live music territory, but like in terms of some of the stuff we do, we're competing with places like Edmonton and Calgary, who like, I mean,
way bigger.
Or even Winnipeg. We're talking places that are 3 times the size of the city, and it's because we have a plugged in audience base here. We have people who want to see stuff. Part of that might be the isolation. And there's any number of factors. It doesn't matter. We're here. And
exactly. And people are going out to it. So that's exciting. So like obviously these screenings were successful enough that we were able to announce that we're doing another one of these.
We were surprised by the announcement.
We were. It was actually funny because we were talking before the Evil Dead screening, and then John said, "Hey, announce the next one." I was like, "What? That one's happening?" And then I looked back, and you were like shaking your head. And it was like, "Okay, so we got that one." It was like, "Oh yeah, by the way, December 5th, we're doing Black Christmas." So on December 5th, Broadway Theater is going to be shown.
Or is it 4th?
The 5th. It was a fuck up on John's end.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
John had John stuck in my head.
Yeah, John fucked that up. So we got to not let him forget that.
Which is interesting that you can get Black Christmas this year with that new one coming out.
But I think people don't give a fuck about that new one. That's why I think it's different.
Yeah, well, I mean, it depends it's a case-to-case basis thing. Like, sometimes they hold the rights, sometimes they don't care. It's a big mess. Like,
I guess maybe I'm holding it up to a higher standard than most
Black
people
Christmas is not Halloween. Even though the original Black Christmas, and I know this is sacrilegious, the original Black Christmas is better than the original Halloween.
Yes, I agree with that 110%.
Yeah,
I hold Black Christmas very high esteem.
It's like one of the greatest horror movies of all time. Like,
yeah, but they don't have that wide fan base, I guess. That
that's why
I would be the only one going like, well, how come we can get it if the other one's coming out? It's like because nobody gives a fuck. Apparently,
so I'm really hoping, because what was really cool about these screenings is I managed to get a whole bunch of my friends out. Like, obviously, I've shared this story ad nauseum here that I started this podcast because my group of friends aren't big fans of horror movies. Like, they're not. I have Buzi, and then we had another friend, Diego, who did this with us for a while. They were my horror movie friends, so like they're who I wanted to get this outlet. Like, I wanted to get all of my horror movie stuff out with them. And I got to get a whole bunch of my friends out who don't normally like this stuff. They came out to see Halloween, they came out to see Evil Dead, and they all had an awesome time. So that was really cool. I got to show a bunch of my friends Evil Dead and Halloween for the very first time.
When it feels like you're showing something about yourself to people you wouldn't have the opportunity to otherwise, because you can't just say like, hey, watch Evil Dead, you'll get it. It's, that some of that stuff you like about me, it's in there. Like,
exactly.
It's different.
But I really, really, really want them to come see Black Christmas, because I think that's like that's the one where I still think it's a scary movie. Like, I think Black Christmas is a terrifying movie.
I've had this conversation so many times that I still think it's terrifying.
Yeah, and I think it'll be a really good movie to show, especially when it's going to be cold out. It's going to be perfect. It'll be awesome.
I watched that movie on Christmas Day, like in like a family lull, like between things last year, and it was midday and I was getting creeped out.
So good.
I love that movie.
Yeah, but that brings me to like... So I love Halloween, and I always will love Halloween. Let's talk about this screening here a little bit. People were laughing.
Yeah.
It's a different time. It's not... I have never once watched Halloween and laughed at it.
I 100% agree.
I have never done that, but I get it. But it was a little hard for me to be like... I want to turn around and be like, you fucking... Guys, shut up. It's so funny. It's so funny.
Michael's over.
Yeah.
You're doing shit.
Exactly. I was like, you shut up.
Some of it's a pacing issue. I mean, it is like modern audiences are not ready.
Yeah.
Or they're not ready for it. And its sensibility, I was shocked watching it. It actually makes sense that David Gordon Green was brought in to be the director on that other one, because there are bits and pieces of it that almost do remind me a little bit. It's like it is like it's pre-mumblecore sometimes.
Yeah.
A little bit. Like it has...
It's repetitive as fuck.
Yeah, it has a modern indie flavor to it. Like it preempts that style by decades, because other movies didn't start doing that. But there's things about it that reminded me more of like indie drama pacing and things like that, or just like communication and that kind of thing in the film. It was the first time I'd ever seen it, so it was a very unique screening.
Big
for me.
part of that is like the long shots and everything.
And when I say it's repetitive, I don't mean that as a negative criticism. I think that's part of its charm. I think that's like part of what makes Halloween creepy, is that it is like the same kind of setup over and over again, and how they just can't seem to escape it. Like, that is what's creepy about it. But I think it's a whole different movie when you know the groundwork that it laid for future movies and the impact it had on cinema.
That's all about your lenses.
Exactly. But the thing is, as for someone who had seen, like, I got my friend who I'm working for now, I got him to come out, and he never watches horror movies. He's like, "Oh man, that was great. I love old corny horror movies." I'm like,
I
and then I said, I was just like, oh, Halloween's not corny though.
See, never do I get that worse than when I'm talking about Evil Dead, and I always hesitate to bring it up because when I bring Evil Dead up, people go like, "Oh yeah, it's hilarious," and I'm just going like,
I know, I'm like,
you don't
take it back.
I know, yeah, and that we'll get to that too, where people but there was a couple people said to me after Halloween, they're like, "I forgot how funny Halloween is." I'm like, Halloween's not fucking funny. I'm like,
that is absurd to me.
Yeah, I'm like, there's one thing that's funny to me, and that's everybody always bitches about Michael driving. That's always been the constant criticism over all of these years. Everyone's like, how does Michael Myers know how to drive? It's like everyone's complaining about that, but no one is asking, how the fuck does Michael Myers carry his mom's tombstone across town and put it in the like that's
asking a lot of an audience.
But at the same time,
he didn't have to carry it, he drove it there.
Exactly. He put it in the back of the car.
I know, it's just funny to think about. It's the implications of like, oh, what's he gonna do? Where are we gonna see that? How did he transport it there?
Exactly.
I don't want to see how the hot dog gets made.
The one scene that I will admit that will always be funny to me though is where Sheriff Brackett and Donald Pleasance are talking. Dr. Loomis are talking on the street, and they're talking about Michael Myers, and he's like parked at a red light, and then he just kind of like in the background he just drives past it, and you just see him. He's wearing his mask, and he's just pulling the corner.
Full disclosure, I hadn't noticed that until the screen.
Really?
Yeah, I don't know if it was just because of the refurbish on it, and it just things were clearer. It wasn't this like, because I've been watching like the same crappy VHS copy of that for almost my entire life. I'd never noticed that until this screening.
Like,
I was still getting stuff out of it. I didn't notice it.
The only part that I find is like comedy, but it's not always supposed to be built as comedy, is where he comes back in the room with the sheet over himself. I never realized how long of a scene that is, where he just stands there and they keep showing it, and there is something comical about it, but it's also creepy as well. I don't know. I still find that Halloween does creep me out.
I still think that's a creepy scene.
I think Black Christmas is arguably
it's way scarier.
Movie.
It's way
scarier. Yeah. I think the creepiest parts, and they definitely still work, or at least they did for me anyway, while watching Halloween, were all of the long shots through the window, like
to the next house.
Just watching him across the street. Just
that's all the best parts of him.
Well, because we've all seen stuff like that where you're going, did I just see that? And then you never find out. And like that's a creepy sensation, just going like that.
That's a primal thing.
Did I just see what I think I just saw? And it's creepy.
Yeah, that, and everyone in the theater still gasped when he killed the dog. So I appreciated that. At least there's still some compassion in this world.
Hey, and I managed to scare people after the screening was done.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's wrap this. So overall, it was a great screening.
Great experience.
It was great.
To the next
Lots of people showed up, and I couldn't have asked for a better experience than that one for our first screening. But we closed everything off with Buzi snuck out before the movie ended, and he got dressed up in his full Michael Myers attire. I was surprised that you put on your 2018 Michael Myers mask. I know you wanted to give that one some street work, because you haven't practiced that one in the streets yet.
Nope. It's a lot comfier and doesn't feel like it flubs as much on the sides. It looks a little more believable as a mask. Like, the other one feels like it got stretched out too much. But I literally just stood by the door and handed out business cards.
He handed out Teartable business cards.
You wouldn't believe how many people, as soon as they push through a door, are immediately looking behind them. Like, just no forward. Just,
They're not paying attention at all.
And that's how I got scared most of them. Because they just try to be like, Jesus Christ. Which sometimes is the funniest. I think some of the funniest ones was the people who like didn't look left at all as they're walking out, which is the side I'm standing on. Walked all the way out of the theaters, like out into the night. Like, you missed so much.
There was because I videotaped like probably 25 people walking out, and there was probably like 5 or 6 people that just walked right past Buzi without knowing that he was even there. And it was the funniest thing in the world to me, because you just looked over at the camera, you just shrugged because it was just so funny, because they just walked right past Michael Myers and they had no idea that you were even there.
I was watching it on the security camera footage. I was actually trying to. I can show you guys some pictures of it after. The angle on it makes it so that it's not as good as I wanted it to be, because I wanted to do the same thing and get some good footage of it. Yeah, I forgot about it until just now. But the funny thing is, it lends credence to that. Well, because whenever people people are watching horror movies, they're always going like, oh, well, of course I know there's a killer back there in a mask. Of course I'd see that. No, you wouldn't. You'd walk right past him.
Yeah, so many people walk 6 people.
Yeah. It lends total credence to the like, people just aren't as perceptive as they think they are. Everyone always thinks they know better than the movie. No, you don't.
Especially right after the movie.
Yeah. And that's what it looked like, because it looked like a scene where, like, you know, someone's walking around, you know, it looked like The Strangers or something like that, where, like, you know, that's people amazing. Are walking around and you're right next to them.
It's what it looks so like. Funny.
Yeah. Like, I'm pretty sure if they were, like, a little quieter, they could probably hear me breathing. Like, that's how close I was.
Yeah, that was hilarious. Okay, so yeah, that was awesome. And then obviously we'll talk about The Evil Dead when we get to the main feature. But until then, do you guys want to talk about other things we've seen? Mm-hmm. Who wants to go first? Scott, have you seen anything of note?
I kind of also wanted to ask, like, if you could quickly, just off the top of your head, like, the last couple years, what's really stuck with you? Because, you know, you can always go, like, oh, last year had one cool movie, but, like, is anything stuck with you over the last, like, I don't know, 2-3 years?
Well, there's been lots. I mean, like, the one-offs sometimes, like, I mean, there is a sense of, like, ego attached to them insofar as, not that I think that, like, they're all great screenings, but, like, I get to, you know, if I find an excuse to show one of my favorite movies, it's really meaningful to me, or to just showcase something from, like, a filmmaker that I think is worth everyone's time and all that kind of thing. I think that somebody who's consistently put me in a very strange headspace and makes me feel very exposed in the theater that we keep getting his movies, and I'm very thankful for, is the last couple of Lars von Trier movies, which are controversial every time we bring them in.
Holy fuck, that's amazing that you're saying this right now. I love that.
Well,
sorry.
No,
because nobody would ever say that.
Well, because that's the big cross section for me, because from what we do at the Broadway, again, for anyone who doesn't know, like, I mean, largely what we're focused on is indie, art house, foreign, that type of thing. We don't bring in a lot. We don't bring in easy stuff.
You're not getting any of those Jenny McCarthy movies.
No. And Von Trier is, like, that's a bigger name of something we bring in. We bring in some really challenging stuff. We bring in, like, experimental films sometime. And his stuff he's in a really interesting spot with me, because his stuff, especially we brought in one of the first things I did when I was working at the theater was I brought in the both parts of the, I guess they're kind of one part now if you see them at home, but the Nymphomaniac, and I felt really oddly exposed to an audience, like it was, I went opening night because I didn't have a chance to see it in advance. I booked it because I like Von Trier's stuff, and I mean, I think he's a heavily flawed person. I think he's a flawed director in a way that I find really compelling. Like, the thing when he is doing things that are, like, I think, like, maybe emotionally clunky and just, like, kind of tone deaf. I think that I don't think he's ever tone deaf. I think he's aware when he's being how should I put this, indelicate. And I think that he's doing it for a reason. I think that, like, he is aware of his own...
He's aware of his bluntness in whatever subject he's...
And his own problems. Yeah. I don't think he thinks he's a perfect person. And I think that when you are dealing with artists, they all, you know, like, I don't think he thinks he has a perfect vision. I think he addressed that very much in his last film, in House of Jack.
It's the best example of it.
Yeah. He is somebody who takes himself to task and is really hard on himself. And I don't think that because he says the odd thing that really upsets people, I don't think anyone wants to give him the credit. And, like, I mean, he is immature, but he's aware that he is, and I think he feels. No one else deals with shame the way he does, like his in self-directed, and he does it in such a way that I identify with it a lot. And when the lights came up at the intermission, between the two parts of Nymphomaniac, I felt like I was naked in the theater. Like, I was surrounded by, like, it was a mix of people I knew, people I didn't know, but I felt like I had just been, like, put on blast by somebody on a screen, and it was, like, it was exhilarating and embarrassing, and, like, it's just, like, it's what I go, like, I mean, it was such a huge experience. When I get to go to something and I get to be so proud of putting on something that makes me feel that ill at ease in my own skin, like, that's when I start feeling good.
You never get those experiences,
no.
Like,
and with his stuff,
you almost always do.
Yeah.
So, like, did you like House of Jack Built? Because we fucking adored that movie.
Very much. And actually, I think I might have argued a little bit about it on Reel to Reel, because I think it did. You know what? I remember this now, kind of throwing my hands up and saying, I don't really want to say that this was my favorite movie of the year, but it was. There's too much about it.
That's how we felt.
Yeah, there's too much about it that not only works for me, but like, I mean, I feel like it's having a lot of important conversations. It's also some of the funniest stuff he's ever done, which is like him showing some muscles he doesn't usually flex. I just think that, so, like, I mean, because he is like, he's very capable, but he also is sees a necessity in airing out laundry that a lot of people would be terrified of airing out, and really letting people into his life in such a way that makes it so that when he's dealing with horrific material, so this is still well within the realms of horror as far as I'm concerned. I feel more horrified by a lot of the things he advances than a lot of modern horror. And I think that within the realms of like what I guess is referred to, I've heard in a couple different, whatever, art house horror, what are people calling it now? I hate this. Elevated horror, which I hate. I understand why people want to put it in a new bracket, because they want to other themselves and go like, oh, I don't really watch horror movies, but but like,
well, I don't like Friday the 13th, but I like this.
Well, but you know what, like Friday the 13th is still saying things about the culture.
Exactly.
It's still like there's still conversations going on there.
We still put House of Jackpot, we included in our top 10, so like, which we didn't include a lot of movies that we were like, yeah, this should technically be horror, but it's not really horror. House of Jackpot's a horror movie.
100%.
It is a fucking fantastic horror movie.
Yeah, I think that when I get a chance to bring something in where I can completely divorce myself from the fact that this is work and I forget where I am, and like, I don't know why that my mind raced to that. It's just I've had so many moments with Von Trier in that theater, I guess. I don't know. So I don't know why my mind raced to that, but it did.
Okay, that's great. Well, I like your courage to say that, because a lot of people, like in the world that we're living in now, it says, if you're a Von Trier fan, you hate women. Well, and it's like, that's ridiculous. Well, see, it's completely ridiculous.
But I want to talk about it when people say that, because I don't feel like that is, you don't get just to make the declarative and then walk away from it. We have to talk this out now, because you've leveled a pretty serious accusation at me.
No, and that's,
you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I want, like, let's have it out. What do you mean when you tell me like that's the case? Because I think that he recognizes that he has damage attached to that, and he's working through it. And I think that that's really vital. I think that's important. I don't think he handles it delicately all the time. I don't think he's perfect. I don't think he's ever said he was. And I think that he, unlike a lot of people, especially in the arts, doesn't think he has gender politics nailed, and he endeavors to work it out. And I think I think doing it out loud to an audience is really, like, I mean, it's tough. Yeah. And I find that way more compelling than even if you've been able to fake perfect long enough to put a perfect movie together for me that I don't want to be comfortable. It's not my interest level. I like, that's art in general. I don't want to just go to a cinema or to a gallery and just agree with everything all the time. Like, I'm okay to disagree too. I've walked away from lots of art that I think is, complete garbage, and I still feel fortunate to have had the chance to engage with it and then walk away and go like, I think that this person's wrong, but I don't say like, take this off the wall.
Exactly. I know people they're so quick to make judgments about things like that, because that's just the world that we're living in right now. And it's really sad, because it's affecting art. Yeah. At the end of the day, it's art. And I think that's what makes House of Jackpot so effective, is that it's a comment on his art, but that is like so incredibly flawed to begin with. And I love that he worked through it with us there for it. And I enjoyed seeing a narcissist work through his shit like that. Like,
absolutely, he's able to admit that he is, because we all are. Anyone who thinks that they have something that's worth saying out loud to an audience, to a degree, has at least that in them someplace.
I agree.
It's. I mean, Mother would be another really good instance of that.
Did you like Mother?
I loved Mother.
I loved Mother. Okay, yes, you're my favorite person ever.
I don't want to like completely hijack the podcast. I'll try to do this in like 30 seconds, but I was in attendance for one of the first North American screenings for that, because I saw it at TIFF before any word about what I want to hear about this, because
I only got to see it here, and I got 3 people walked out.
Really? Yeah. Well, I mean, you guys know what happened with it critically. It split the audience. So I was there before anyone knew what to think about the movie. No one had any opinions. No one had heard what Aronofsky had to say about it. But that is one of my favorite screenings I've ever been to in my life, because I showed up. I had no idea. I had really sheltered myself from seeing anything to do with the movie. I had no idea what was going on. And as it unraveled, that movie spoke to me. And again, speaking to like just, I guess, like especially creator self-mythologizing and that type of thing, like just in being so imperfect and being wrong. And like just to me, I love the layers in the film, but feeling that room turn on that movie, because it really was like, it was mainly people who were upset with the movie over the course of it. I've never felt the atmosphere in a theater like that before in my life. It was very powerful, and to be in opposition to the energy in the room felt like it was exhilarating. It was amazing. So I like that kind of experience. I don't know. Yeah. I like to be challenged. I don't know what,
okay. I haven't had an experience like that since Dude, Where's My Car? I'm sorry. No, but I fucking love Mother, and I will ride that. Oh, I love Aronofsky in general. That's how Noah was for me, though. Noah, I had a theater experience like that, and it wasn't at TIFF. It was just at the Galaxy here, and people were walking out. People were pissed. I talked to people outside of the theater who I didn't even know, and it was like, when do you ever get a movie like that where you can have that conversation?
That happened with Mother. I got in line to go see. It was 3 billboards actually. I got in line from Mother, like just went across the hall to get in line for 3 billboards, and this woman who I know, she walked out with me, and we both got into the same line. I have no idea who she is. A woman in her 50s turns to me, and she, without zero lobbying on my part, I don't care about her opinion about anything, she turns to me and she goes, "I hated it," and then she turned back away and never said another word to me.
Oh, congrats.
Yeah. I was like, oh wow, I guess you did.
I guess I'm gonna lower my score now. Okay, so
she sounds like a fucking like video game NPC. Like you're just living your life. I hated it, and then goes back, and if you maybe retraced your steps, you do the same thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Crazy. All right, do you want to knock off some of the stuff that we've seen, Buzi?
What have we seen?
Have you seen anything?
No, I got nothing.
You got nothing? No. Okay, I got a couple things. I'll knock off, I got 2 things here. So I recently picked up the Omen box set from Scream Factory. So I picked that up because I am an idiot. I had to do it. I like 2 out of 5 of the movies. Of course I had to buy it.
Of course.
Okay, so I was working through some shit after I had bought it, and I was like opening up. I'm like, yeah, it's so pretty. Like, they did a great job on the box set. Like, I really do love the original Omen and Omen 2 Damien. Like, it's a great, I really like Omen 2. But the box art was great. I already own this box set, but on a different Blu-ray. Like, have I shown you that? Okay, yeah, so I'm an idiot. Like, I already own all these movies on Blu-ray, but I had to buy this one because this one isn't shaped like a DVD box set. Like, the other box set is shaped like a DVD.
So when am I expecting you to try and pawn this off on me?
I've already tried pawning it off on you because I knew this one was coming out. So, but yeah, either way, I had to do it. So Courtney and I decided to, like, I'm gonna go through the entire thing like I do with every time I buy a box set like these, I go through the whole thing. But I decided to start off with the remake, which is a weird choice, but I wanted to do it.
Very interesting.
I wanted to do it because I know I don't like it. And I know I'm gonna watch them all, and like
is that kind of your way to like get a refresher, and then you can go back?
Well, I've seen the original Omen.
I know, but many
times.
Like to dip your toe in there.
I just want to get it out of the way.
Yeah.
For me, it was I just want to get it over with.
Like, if I was gonna watch all the Amityville movies, I'd probably watch that Ryan Reynolds one first, and then just kind of go.
What sucks is that Ryan Reynolds one's probably one of the better ones.
Well, that's not saying
that's a lot. No, there's some really bad Amityville movies.
Justin from Ghost and Drag about that.
Oh yeah, exactly. He was on here. We talked about fucking 19 Amityville movies.
He had notes and everything.
Yeah,
he's a hero.
Yeah, he is. Yeah, but we watched the. So I have like a long story about this, so I'm just going to do the cliff notes. I was a big AFI fan growing up as well. I was obsessed with AFI.
I'm just starting to get into them now.
Oh, really?
I listened to Art of Drowning on LP last night.
Yeah, that's a great.
I liked it. Yeah,
I still listen to some of their stuff.
It's great, but I was a big fan, and on 666, so June 6th, 2006, AFI was releasing their new album, December Underground. And the Omen remake was coming out, which I had always been, even at that point, I was a big fan of the original Omen, so I was like, yeah, I'm excited for this new Omen movie. And my sister also bought a dog that day, and it was a Chihuahua, and the thing was fucking evil as hell. Like, he's no longer with us. I'm the only one he didn't bite. Long story short, I love him. No one else. He didn't get along with anyone else. It was a bad day for 3 different reasons. That dog bit everyone except for me. That AFI album was the worst thing imaginable. Like, that album,
not for them.
Oh, it destroyed me. It destroyed me. I remember my heart just breaking because it was like,
damn,
it was so awful. As like, I was
that's their most profitable album.
It was, because I was a fan of them as a punk band, and then that's when they started going like, that was when they did like, everyone knows Miss Murder, like the.
See, I don't. I missed all this stuff. I only know because I think I was joking about them with a friend, and then he kind of went like, it was a little bit like guy, like, you know, like, I don't know, he was moving some material to you, and kind of like, you know, looks around and checks his shoulders and goes, you know, they're actually a pretty good band, huh? And I was like, what are you talking about? And it was a friend, Sergey from the band The Weir, who I'm gonna definitely get to listen to this. And he's like, yeah, let's spend. I was in Calgary, and he basically just spent the night playing me old AFI, and I was like, shit, this is really good.
Oh man, old AFI is so good.
So I haven't even heard this new. I don't know what they eventually sounded like.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was so bad. But like, so that crushed me, and then I went and saw this Omen remake, and I fucking hated it. It was like just the worst day ever for me. So it was an awful day. I haven't watched the movie since that day, so I haven't seen this movie since 2006, yeah, when it came out. Upon rewatch, it's not horrible. It's just not good either. Like, this is just exists. It's one of those remakes that, you know, it didn't need to happen.
I thought I was going to make myself unpopular and say, like, I didn't think it was bad. I just thought it was really redundant.
Yeah, like, that's exactly what it is.
It exists only to be released on 6.
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. They're like, oh shit, we got to do something about this. 666 is coming up. We got to do something. Yeah. And like, Amityville just came out. That was a big hit. So we got to do this.
What's Rob Zombie doing?
Yeah, exactly. So we got to push this Omen movie out. And like, it's pretty cringy. Like, the Julia Stiles is the main, she plays the mother, so obviously she does not have the acting chops that you have in like the original Omen. Liev Schreiber, like, I don't need to go too deep into this. It's just, the movie doesn't hold up. It wasn't great it wasn't great when it came out, but it's not the worst thing. It's not the worst remake I've ever seen, but it's just, there's nothing there. You're not going to find, if you rewatch it now, you're not going to find something new that you thought, you know, you might have missed the first time. Yeah. It's a perfectly bland remake of a horror movie. It's one of those ones that's going to, you know, for people who make those arguments about, are remakes bad, like, people who are either pro or against remakes, like, this is one of those ones that's going to give them some ammo and saying that they're not very good. I don't know where I'm getting it here. I'm sorry. I'm going way off topic. Moving on from that, I went and saw The LightHouse. I was going to
go yesterday. I want to know, but I don't want to know.
I needed to go see it. So this is the new film from Robert Eggers, the director of The Witch. I will say, this is, like I've said, that this is one of my most anticipated movies of the year so far. This is the least commercial movie I've ever seen in a major theater like this. Like, it is so not a movie that you can imagine.
But that's because A24 has that name recognition.
But this is so, yeah.
How much longer can they ride that, though? Like, I mean, I feel like this is like, I can't believe they're still getting away with this.
This is the one where it's like, it's like, how are they getting away with this? Yeah. Like, this is like Dogville, like, levels of like, how the fuck is this in the,
interesting?
Like, yeah, like, I'm not to compare it to Dogville, but you know how, like, just the scope of Dogville, if that makes any sense. It's the aspect ratio, like, it's the movie's filmed in full screen. It's a black and white movie, just like how The Witch, like, he used actual time. What's the word I'm thinking of?
I'm not sure. I don't know what you're going for here.
Time
accurate?
Yeah, time accurate. Time accurate language in The Witch and everything. That's something that a lot of people couldn't get behind when The Witch came out, and that's a movie that, like, when I first saw The Witch, I wasn't sure if I liked it or if I wasn't even sure if I enjoyed it at all. But that's a movie that I've now watched like 10 times, and every time I watch it, I like it even more. It's become one of my favorites, and it's one of those movies that I just, every time I watch it, I find something different that I like about it, and a different layer that I didn't see before. And I think that the same thing's going to happen with the Lighthouse. I think he did the same thing here that he did with that. I think Lighthouse is fucking awesome. This movie is fucking incredible, but it is one of the strangest movies I've seen in a theatrical setting like this. It's not going to be a movie for everybody. I think there's going to be a lot of people who are going to leave the theater pissed off because they're going to... It's not a movie that's going to give you all the answers. You're going to leave not knowing all the answers. You're going to leave thinking about it for a couple days. When I left the theater, I thought, yeah, that was great. I'm never going to watch it again. Then 20 minutes later, I was just like, I can't wait to watch that movie again. And then every minute that goes past, I'm like, I can't wait for the Lighthouse to come out so I can just examine the fuck out of this movie. Because it's the kind of shit that just gets me excited these days. Like, this is the type of movie that really excites me. I think it's masterful. I think the two performances with Pattinson and Dafoe are unbelievable. I think any of these Pattinson naysayers these days are driving me crazy. It is nuts that Robert Pattinson is punching at the same weight level as Willem Dafoe, and you'll know what I mean once you see the movie. I definitely recommend it for people if you were a fan of The Witch, or if you're okay with the type of cinema that's gonna like really challenge you, and it's gonna, like, they even say, I think it's like halfway through the end credits, they say that the language was based off of like Herman Melville books and everything like that. So like they use the time period sensitive language for this as well. So there are times where it's kind of hard. It's not your normal language that you're used to, so get used to that. It's a movie.
It's weird how much you can climatize to that kind of thing while you're watching a movie. There's circumstances. Like, very briefly, I ran a movie that was in sign language at the theater that didn't have subtitles on it. And while you're watching it in the first 5 minutes, you're like, "There's no way I'm going to catch up with this." And it's the entirety of the film is all in sign language, and they never clue you in. And it only takes you 15 minutes before you stop telling yourself that, and you go with it, and you're never lost.
See,
it's interesting.
I feel like that's how the Lighthouse is, and I feel like that's where it'll differ from The Witch, where it's definitely easier to climatize yourself to this than it is The Witch. Like the Witch is pretty jarring in the way that they, like, the whole Old English, like, it's kind of hard to, it's not easily accessible or anything like that. This is definitely less easily accessible than The Witch, though. Like, if you couldn't get into The Witch, stay away from the Lighthouse. Like, if The Witch wasn't your thing, don't tread these waters. Like, but it's a really cool, contained, dark, creepy, atmospheric horror tale. I don't even want to call it a horror movie. It's just it's creepy, and it's just awesome. I loved it so much, but it's definitely going to be a movie that is not going to be for everybody, and I'm
still sold on it.
I'm going to try to see it in the next couple days. I'm really excited about it.
It's playing at Galaxy Boot. I would say try and go a little sober if you're planning on going, because you got to pay attention to this one, Buzi.
I'll do my best.
Okay, that's everything that I've seen. Okay, so we can get on to we got some news.
We just have like one piece of news, so we might as well just tag it on the end here. For those who are going to be hearing this right away, trailer for The Grudge just came out, the new remake, and it looks really good.
So I just said this before too. Who's the guy who's doing it though? He's director of Inside, I think.
Yeah. It's like completely. You've seen The Grudge, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I was actually just I was talking to some people.
Eyes of My Mother. I'm sorry, I keep screwing this up. The director of Eyes of My Mother.
Yeah.
Directed this.
Interesting.
So good. That instantly makes it more interesting than anyone else making it.
It looks like it like, because we just talked about it, so it's still in my ear. Is like if A24 made The Grudge. That's what it looks like.
This is so very germane to where we started this conversation. See, Eyes of My Mother, I have a lot of like grievances with, but I recognized the prowess of, to the point where I'm totally interested.
It was an experience.
It was. Yeah. I didn't love it, but I'm 100% on board to see that director work again.
Yeah.
And work on something like that. That's very, very compelling to me.
Yeah.
I think the difference is because we were really looking forward to where the fuck was I going with this? Oh, with the nun, Corin Hardy.
Corin Hardy,
Because we were really excited with what Corin Hardy was going to do next, and it's like, oh, he's getting this like bigger studio movie to do.
Because he did a Irish creature feature, The Hallow,
and that was awesome. It, like, as soon as I saw The Hallow, I was like, I want to see exactly what this guy does next. I still haven't seen The Nun, but it
sucks.
It's very bad.
Yeah, and that's the thing where you're like, oh crap, like that's what happened to this director. Whereas like we can look at this and like now I'm seeing the trailers for this movie, and it's like, oh, they're still allowed to do what they were doing before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and so I watched the trailer right before we started this. I think it, as someone who, I didn't like The Grudge, like the Sarah Michelle Gellar one. Mm-hmm. Like I don't like that movie at all. Even though the whole J-horror thing is kind of, like, I don't know what it is for me. I just never really connected with that whole craze. Like, as far as I go, I like Ringu and The Ring, mm-hmm. like the remake. But I just think this looks like just like a good version of The Grudge.
Yeah.
Like, it just looks like The Grudge.
It looks like art house Grudge. I'm fine with it.
Kind of, but it does still look like it's loaded with jump scares.
And you see John Cho.
And it's jump scares. Like,
it'll be like, I bet the only jump scares in the whole movie are what's in the trailer to get in
there's like
those
10
people.
In that trailer.
To get in those kind of people.
Yeah. It's definitely, because it's a commercial movie. Like, they're going to want teenagers to go to this movie.
And that's what I mean. Like, it looks scary because this jumps out.
But I just want to see
there might be some actual substance in this.
Yeah, that's all I want is I want some kind of substance in a movie like that.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to get is like, it does feel like there's a little bit of meat to that, and it's not just going to be shock and awe the whole time and like failing.
I'm very curious to see that. I was just talking the other day. Like I think that because it's such a limited, it's you know, that the J horror stuff was very limited in its scope insofar as it was trying to draw from like a lot of tradition and they just kept coming back to a lot of the same motifs. I do think those early movies were still like reasonably strong. I like the
like Dark Water.
Yeah, Dark Water. I like Ju-on. I think that that like as how they hang together narratively, some of those movies are not super tight, but I do think that the actual scares and like I think some of it stays with you. Like I don't know if this is unpopular. I don't even really know, but I actually thought that the Gore Verbinski remake of The Ring actually hung together as a film better. Like I think
I like that one more than Ring.
Yeah, I think that the actual like narratively, like the additions were actually quite welcome. Like, and I think that fleshing out the background and everything like that, it was a more sensible story. So I think that a lot of those movies, they are largely hanging together on just atmosphere and that type of thing. Given that atmosphere is the flavor of the day, though, with the Eyes of My Mother director, I think that's kind of it's an interesting pairing.
Yeah, that's like all atmosphere.
Yeah, I think it's a good foothold for that to be in.
Yeah, I'm calling me interested.
Yeah, cool. All right, well, we will be right back with our main feature presentation, in which we'll be talking about The Evil Dead from 1981. And welcome to our main feature presentation, in which we'll be talking about The Evil Dead from 1981, which was directed by Sam Raimi and was also written by Sam Raimi and is starring Bruce Campbell, Ellen Sandweiss?
Sandweiss, I think.
Sandweiss, okay. Richard
Well, I don't remember his Hell Delrich.
I like you're just looking over it. Yeah, can't tell, but you're just
Hell Delrich is the fake name that I can't remember his real name. Basically, he was trying to avoid because of the actors union. So
for sure, we'll go with Hell Delrich. Yeah, Betsy Baker in the you know the drill, everyone. This is 5 friends travel to a cabin in the woods where they unknowingly release flesh possessing demons. So this is the classic. It's The Evil Dead, so like we're just
it's a movie. It's a movie.
No, I've talked about this from day one of the podcast when we talked about like our gateways into horror. The Evil Dead played a huge role for me. I've talked about that ad nauseum, so everyone kind of knows my story of Ash Williams and The Evil Dead. So I want to pass it off to Skot because before the screening, it was actually before the Halloween screening, me and Scott were just, like you had said before, we were talking about The Evil Dead a little bit. Or do you have something to say, Buzi?
You finish what your thought, and then I have something to add before he can start.
Okay, because me and Scott were talking about The Evil Dead, and I was asking him if, like, because I know that we were watching the new 4K restoration that had the new score, the updated score, and everything, and I'd asked if you like took a sneak peek at it or anything like that. Like, what could we expect? Because like we hadn't seen it yet. We were just going to see it live with you, and then we started talking about The Evil Dead, and that was when I was like, "Okay, just stop talking. You should come on the show." Buzi, you have something to say?
Okay, so I just wanted to remind us, because we've had like such an insane conversation this whole podcast.
Yeah.
I just wanted to remind you guys that you had the liberty to swear at any point.
I know, I've been doing well because Scott's been offering good conversation, so I haven't been swearing.
I wanted to hit a point where you can say shit, bastard, bitch, damn, cunt, fuck, twat, motherfucker. So you can say all those things if you want.
Okay, all right.
And you could also say waffle.
Okay, so this is where it's just going to sound like a whole bunch of beeps right there.
Yeah, I just wanted to get that out of my system.
All right,
I actually wrote that down.
Okay.
I was curious what your phone had to do with that. Okay. Okay.
All right, so Scott, let's start with your fucking story on The Evil Dead. You fucking cunt.
Well, listen here.
Listen here.
I'm gonna do my best to work in as much.
Oh no! Don't do that. 'Cause
that's funny. It's funny. Whatever.
No,
you tell your story as rough of an editing job as possible. So the big, as I mentioned earlier, so Army of Darkness was my favorite movie, and to me, it was like a movie that like I kind of felt like I found home with, because it was something that, like a big thing for me when I was growing up was like there was this separation point between me and my friends when it came to movies.
I was gonna say that probably helped with you having that was your thing, right?
It was my thing, because what was going on specifically, and I don't mean to offend anybody in the room, I don't know where you guys lie on this, but contemporary comedy at the time was specifically it was a lot of Jim Carrey stuff, and I like that's what my friends thought the shit was, and I was.
Are you apologizing for Jim Carrey to us?
So you didn't like Dumb and Dumber?
No, I don't like that stuff. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't move me. But
I get it. No,
specifically, like I mean, at my age group at that time, like it was things like Ace Ventura, and like I was trying to watch horror movies, and I was trying to do all this other stuff, and I finding something that sensibility like that everyone else saw and said like that's really stupid. Why would you watch that? That made it feel like mine.
I think for me, I can relate where like that yours was like Jim Carrey, whereas like mine was like Dane Cook.
Yeah,
where like everyone else was all over Dane Cook, and I was like, I just want to watch like Sleepaway.
Everybody finds an ass talking funny.
You're just over there all tense stuff.
Yeah. See, I didn't mean to turn it into that. This is gonna end in a fist fight. But
I like where you're going here.
But like no, it was a big moment where I was like, well, I guess I don't have to agree with everybody, and you know what? I mean, they like what's over here. I like what's over here. That
was your like individuality moment.
Yeah, and so this movie felt very important to me, and especially I got so obsessed with it. Like I mean, to the point where I must have been irritating, and it wasn't until my cousin finally said, like, there's other movies, right? Like, that's not its own movie. And I was like, what the hell are you talking about? Again, I read the back of I still didn't get it. I read the back of the movie, and I still didn't understand that
Army of Darkness?
Evil Dead was.
Yeah. Are we talking about Evil Dead or Army of Darkness?
No, that was Army of Darkness.
Okay.
So, and so I went like, oh, there's this. And he's like, yeah, it's actually kind of scary. And I said, oh, okay, that's great. I like horror movies, so this is perfect for me. And I didn't really think anything of it other than like my cousin was a cool guy, and he said this movie's actually scary, so like be ready for it or something like that. I think like at his age, he probably would have meant more that it was very intense, because I don't think he found it very scary. But I rented it, same family video. So this thing was sitting in front of me the entire time. It was the old, I think it was an embassy box, maybe something like that. It was a bigger box, and the thing was beat to hell. It must have been an original release, just like jacked up. It was a messed up copy, and I rented it. I still remember the sleepover. Like, friend of mine came over and watched it, and I don't feel like that friend was as nearly as affected by it as I was. I didn't sleep that night because I was like, I was terrified while I was watching it. And like my body felt like I had been electrocuted. I was like, I was specifically, it did things to me about like, I remember distinctly for like an entire summer thinking about doorways being something that bothered me, because I kept expecting to look over and see Linda cross-legged in the doorway. Like that is a visual, like doorway, literally the movie made me scared of doorways. And I know what it activated. A lot of what it did for me is it was an energy I'd never seen before. And it felt like an assault. And I mean, this has been kind of documented. This probably isn't my imagination. It felt like an assault on me as an audience member. And I'd never had art lash out at me before. And I was really turned on by that. I loved that. And also, like, I mean, how jarring is that? And you have to catch its wavelength, because a lot of people see it and they just go like, oh yeah, it's dumb. They throw a bunch of blood at the screen, whatever. But if you are open to receiving it, I mean, especially the first couple times you see it, it kind of like it hurts to watch. It's high impact viewing. And I was so ready to see that movie, because it was a movie that had something to do with the movie that I thought was my favorite movie.
Yeah.
I mean, if you would ask me the next morning, having not slept, if Evil Dead was my favorite movie, I wouldn't have said yes, but I was feeling it like all throughout. And I was almost scared I was more scared to watch it the second time, even though I knew what was coming. It had such a profound effect on, like, I mean, well, because I already knew how horrible it was, and I knew it was going to have that effect all over again, and I'm kind of still going through that. Every time I turn it on, it contains magic. It has something that movie still has a hold on me. And I think this is roughly where you cut me off when we were talking and said, like, let's just get into this later. That movie, more than any other piece of art, really affected my moving forward and my interest set in the world. It, prior to me getting into like underground music, it set me up to be prepared for limited budgets when it comes to like working on a piece of art. It kind of set me up to be ready for lo-fi recordings. And certainly, like, I mean, it's what got me into cult films. That's the first like big capital C cult film I remember getting into that made me go like, oh, it gets weirder. We can keep going down, and this is the tip of the iceberg. And I mean, granted, most of those I didn't like as much as I like The Evil Dead, certainly, but it was...
So it was kind of like it was a gatekeeper for all that stuff.
Huge, enormously. But the way it ended up affecting my like disposition like was so far past just cinema, though. Like cinema, certainly, because it's the high watermark for like fear for me, because I haven't seen another movie that scared me as much and continues to still work. I think, like, I mean, if I'm I leave it on as casual viewing a lot, like especially early pre-Adolyne days, the band that kind of like was the real high school band that Adolyne grew out of. Like, we used to just leave it running in the background because it just makes my brain churn. Like, just seeing it, I find it so stimulating all the time, and I still do. But if I put it on and I'm home alone and I can hear it, like if I go to grab something from the other room and I can hear it playing in the other room,
it's still fucking scary.
Yeah, it still makes
still such a scary movie.
It makes the hair on my arms stand on end. But it informed specifically me and like my entryway into underground music, which turned into such a huge part of my life. More than anything, like, it prepared me for that. It prepared me for independent culture. It prepared me for, if you don't have the money, just figure it out. Like, I mean, just
there's always a way to create something,
and I can't. There isn't. I don't think that there's a single thing that I'm doing as an adult that didn't really have didn't grow out of those seeds that movie planted in me. To me, it's such an important piece of art. I don't get tripped up when I meet people I've worked, like a lot of my favorite musicians I've like worked with. I've I've toured with some of them. I'm playing in a band that used to be one of my favorite bands. Like I get to do stuff like that. When I got to meet Betsy Baker wasn't there. It was one of those Women of the Evil Dead things at a conference. I seriously started tripping over myself because I was like, this is surreal. These people were part of something that it was Ellen Sandweiss and the name of
Shelley,
yeah.
Sarah York,
yeah. When I met them, I made a goddamn fool out of myself.
When did you meet them?
Would have been 2013 or 12,
okay.
maybe. It was Cinema Wasteland, actually, with Tyler Baptist.
Okay.
And my wife got to see it, or my then girlfriend, now wife, got to see me just go to pieces over it. And I think I might have been especially with Ellen Sandweiss, because she's scared me so much, and that's such an intense thing. And she has to deal with idiots like me all day long, and so I felt a little bit bad about it. But I was trying to be concise, and I tried to go you guys are you guys are part of the most important piece of art in my life. And you could see them going oh, it's one of those guys. But they were so
leaning, we got a weird one.
They were so nice about it. But I couldn't not tell them. It was so important to me that I got that off my chest. It was so profound to me.
I love that when people can understand that, because I also I can't stand when people for example, when someone when a celebrity dies and it really affects someone, there's a lot of people who who clearly don't understand how art works.
Yeah,
they don't understand how even, for example, this doesn't even hold a candle to that experience. That sounds incredible. But even 2 weeks ago, Buzi and I met Nick Castle, the original Michael Myers.
Yeah,
it was just even walking up to him, I'm I didn't know what to say.
There were so many things I wanted to say.
It was just you know what? I grew up watching him strangle dogs and teenagers, and I was scared shitless of him. But I was oh, it's so nice to see you. And he's it's nice to see you too. And I was just gushing, and I'm just the fact that he was just a nice person is how much of my life I owe to him. Oh, sorry.
These are important things. I really wish people wouldn't you were saying when people die, and then there's always the initial push where everyone says their piece and says I really loved them in this, or I love this song, or what have you. And then there's the pushback where everyone goes you never liked David Bowie or whatever. And that type of thing. That always really upsets me, because especially as somebody who grew up responding to art and maybe having a more in-depth because me and my friends stopped making sense to each other at a certain point, and I was only having conversations with art. I was they were all this stuff that I have on my walls, all this stuff, all my collection. That's what's speaking to me now, because my friends don't want to talk about the things that either interest me or are bothering me. I'm finding that more as an adult when it comes to things that are really chewing at my brain. I mean, adults don't want to talk about the problems you're having in depth. It bums people out. And you know what? There's been, all those songs and those movies, they're there when no one else wants to talk about it. And so that stuff is really important, and people shouldn't pretend they're too cool for that. I've been in situations with other musicians where one of my favorite bands, one of my favorite active bands is a band called the Austerity Program out of New York. When I met them the first time, they were opening for us a couple of bands down on the bill. They're not a big band. They're not a huge band. They were, kindly enough to open for us, but that didn't stop me from going up and talking to them and going, man, your guys' songs mean so much to me. I'm so happy we're playing with you, because people need to know that they've had that impact on you. I think it's important, and I don't think you should deny yourself. It's just credit where credit's due. I
agree. Yeah.
I think these things are important. And when it came to the Evil Dead stuff, I'm sure Bruce Campbell is I've never had a chance to meet him. I almost kind of would be weirded out by that, because he's so much more, but because the original crew from Evil Dead is attached ostensibly mainly to Evil Dead. like they to me almost have a bit more of a rock star vibe about them, because they were only involved in this thing that just completely rearranged my DNA. And so yeah, like seeing them and then like being there at like I couldn't, like, it's one of the only times I've marked out hard on somebody.
You just use a fucking wrestling term.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
That's awesome.
No one ever says marked out, and I'm like, I always say marked out. No one gets it.
Like the big thing about continuing to be artist, curator, all that stuff is like I'm still a fan first.
Yeah.
Like I'll never get away from that. I'm still digging for, like, I hope I find a movie I like better than Evil Dead. I haven't. I've been looking since I was like 12. I still want to find I still want to find records that I think are the best that I just haven't heard yet. I'm still looking, like, that's what makes the hunt worth it, right? And I mean, a lot of the best stuff I've heard is all stuff that, like dates back, because a lot of it, I mean, just whatever. It's when, like, I can't with a straight face say that I've seen anything that's affected me as profoundly as Evil Dead. It doesn't mean I have to stop looking, but until that time comes, like, I'm gonna tell somebody who had something to do with the Evil Dead that they like really made a, like, I wouldn't.
And you're gonna keep celebrating it.
Hell yeah. I mean, because there is that through line that says, like, well, you know what? If you wouldn't have taken this thing this seriously, maybe you wouldn't have, toured Europe a bunch of times. Yeah, you wouldn't have been in the band. Yeah, like all this stuff wouldn't have happened. So I take that. Shit's magic. No. Period.
And it all depends too, is like when you experience it, right? Yeah. Like how I went fucking berserk on Halloween. Halloween's always been around me, like the series. Yeah. Michael Myers has always been around me. It for whatever reason, just I think was it last year? I think
it was last year that you
last year. It just all of a sudden, whatever wiring in my brain, it just connected it perfectly, and I was like, I'm obsessed. Where has this been all my life? I'm obsessed now. Like I'm a fucking weirdo now. Like,
but it's because until then you had Jurassic Park.
It's true. It's true.
Which is still a totally cool thing to.
I wonder if the timing of Fallen Kingdom being out and me all of a sudden being interested in Halloween.
Okay, this is your next, your logical step. This is where you
kill it for me. Like I think Fallen Kingdom killed it for me.
Yeah, I forgot to tell you, I rewatched that piece of shit. Fuck. No, okay, so we're gonna stay on a positive note, man. Honestly, you just said some of the most profound shit.
I know. People have ever said on the show. Because you said so much of it that I can't stop and pause on one thing, because you said so many important things all in one stroke there.
It's amazing, because I agree with you on so many different levels about Evil Dead in particular for my life, like how I got into this, like how this franchise, like when I first got into horror movies and everything was Army of Darkness was my first as well. My cousin showed me that, and I was just like, oh, this is hilarious, and it's so much fun. It's like, I remember them showing me Princess Bride and then showing me this. I was like, this is so much cooler than Princess Bride. And I know that there's so many people out there screaming right now who love Princess Bride, which it's fine, you can like Princess Bride, but to me, Army of Darkness was my Princess Bride, because it was
it was funny and accessible
in a weird way. It was kind of like where you guys were loving Princess Bride, I was loving Army of Darkness, and then I got into Evil Dead, and then the Evil Dead 2, and I was just like, everything about it. It's like no installment has upset me. I've never been let down by even the remake. Like I love the remake.
I don't love the remake.
No,
I have big problems with the remake.
I love the remake, but I love it for it being something completely like the reason why I can love it too is that it's so incredibly different from everything else.
It's really funny. I read so much about that remake as it was coming out, because I really wanted it to be good, or like I wanted to like it, and I think there are good things about it. And the thing that I liked the most is I was reading about what the director had to say, and he was just like talking right back at me, because he was going, I didn't understand that it was, everyone thinks it's funny, I never got that, I want it to be serious again. And I feel like his heart was entirely in the right place. And I have watched that remake so many times, trying to analyze what it is, like where it loses me, why the problem is.
Click.
Because do people think it's funny? Because I don't find it funny.
Like the original?
The remake.
The remake. No. No, he was talking about the original Evil Dead, like, and talking about how he specifically like when he talks to people about the disconnect between him as an audience member and other audience members and how funny they think the original Evil Dead is, and he's
original is not funny.
Yeah, no, it's not.
No.
And he was going, I don't get that, and I'm gonna try to work with that, because like to me, like it was, I wanna have that level of terror again. And so like he was totally preaching right back at me, and I loved everything he was saying. And then I saw it, and while I was watching it, I was going like, I'm not loving this. I'm not even liking some of. I don't like it.
Man, that's
I tried, and like I've watched it trying to figure it out so many times, and it's a lot of little things that amount to me not loving it. I like a lot of things about it, but I can't do it.
I think the one thing that I can attribute that I don't like about it is that's very, very melodramatic off the beginning. But once the carnage starts is where I start really liking it. But
the violence is quite good.
But I'm not entirely down for the whole, like, we're going to get her clean. That's what we're doing. Like, that part kind of annoys me.
I wonder, do you guys remember when the early script, like, discussion was happening?
Yeah.
Because one of the things about that was a carryover from, like, some very early scripts about cleaning somebody up. Now, the idea, and I just don't think they capitalized on it, because what they used that for, was to say like, oh, she's only freaking out because she's having bad reactions to getting out drugs and all that stuff. But the best way to have dealt with that, or to me anyway, is how terrifying is it if the only person you're left with is somebody who's going through like a drug problem, and they're the survivor. They're this compromised like shell of a person who's trying to survive this. I thought that was a really cool idea that they then didn't capitalize on, which, I mean, they wouldn't have been able to capitalize on it anyway. See, and that's another good. I didn't like the movie. I thought that central performance was like out of the park, though. I thought she was the best Deadite and the hero. Yeah, like she was great. I just didn't love the movie,
Something
man. I wanted to. I liked the show. You
like Ash vs. Evil Dead?
I did.
Yeah.
I don't like every episode. But I thought specifically episodes 8 and 10 of season 1 were the strongest thing to come out of the franchise since the second movie. Yeah, I thought they were so strong. I loved them so much.
They are great, but like even season 2, like there's some like season 2. I think that it's like the first episode. The first 2 episodes have more one-liners than the first 3 movies in total.
It's way too much.
It's like overload.
And the scene with the car, or not the scene, the episode with the car being possessed is absolute dog shit. I hate that episode so much.
It's ridiculous. But like the thing, what I don't get though is why they... Okay, so, like... Well, I guess I do get it, because when Evil Dead 2 came out, it all just worked. It worked very well as a comedic, over-the-top thing. You can't deny how amazing it is.
And you can't force it either. That was lightning in a bottle.
Yeah, it was. It's like, incredible.
Anyone who's ever tried to recreate that is, like... I mean, you just look like you're trying to do Evil Dead 2.
But, okay, so I guess, like, to go back a little bit, though, to the original, though, it's like, that really is, like... How the original happened is just what's so incredible to me, is that you have Bruce Campbell, who's like incredibly charismatic, and he has one incredibly functioning eyebrow, and like his
like The Rock.
But his eyebrow is great. Like that's like that eyebrow is quintessential to the success of this movie. But there's so much about this movie that like you said, the whole DIY idea behind the movie is what makes it so successful, and what makes it so like invigorating for someone young to see it. Like it makes it so intoxicating to watch it and know that, like, you could do this. But like 1981, what else was coming out at this time? Like shit like this didn't exist at that time. The fact that Sam Raimi could pull off this level, like the thing is, like, this movie
wasn't Halloween 2 that year.
Yeah, but like there wasn't directing like that, and
no,
like,
if you're asking like what's coming out around, I'm like,
but I'm saying like the level of direction that was in Evil Dead is insane. Yeah. Like Sam Raimi's direction. Sorry.
Well, no. It's just people always spend a lot of time like going like, oh yeah, he had a background and interest in this and interest in that. Three Stooges, this and that. That does not account for just the like complete tour de force of raw talent
exactly,
that he had.
yeah.
I mean, that's unaccounted for. There's just so many techniques and everything. I mean, that's punk rock. Like, that's like, oh, really? I can't do this? Well, I'm going to do this other crazy thing. Like, it just, because it's what we can do. We're out in the woods and I don't know any better. Like, that's, I mean, that's, like, that's the spirit of the thing.
I think it's spirits. Like, it's endlessly charming because of those things.
Yeah.
You know, even if someone watches it in a lens of like, they've never seen it up until now, and they're watching it and they can say like, oh, it doesn't hold up as well as like whatever's coming out now, you can still go like, it has like so much spunk and like character and that like punk rock mentality of what it's trying to be, that it is endlessly endearing for that.
And this is one of those rare cases where I would say that it actually does hold up in that area, because I'm like, the whole like, this movie has it's going out absolutely against everything mainstream. Like, it's going against the grain in every way possible in this movie, and it's succeeding in every single element, and that's why I think it's so successful, and that's why I think people still look at it and are still blown away by it after all these years. Like, the theater that like, it was a different experience after leaving the theater when we showed The Evil Dead than after Halloween. People weren't laughing at The Evil Dead; they were going, I forgot how fucking good that movie was. Like, people were saying that. Then there was a couple of people
cold
like
water. Just
there were a couple of people who were just like, man, the movie's still fucking hilarious. And it's because it is hard to not say that it's funny watching Ash like slap Linda from that angle. Like, when he's slapping Linda, like that's a funny angle.
It's
that
like
just
slapstick. That's classic slapstick
but that
101.
That shows what you're going to find in Evil Dead 2. But the rest of the movie is still so fucking scary.
Yeah, but one of the best things about that, and I think it gets lost in the shuffle again, it's almost like post, well, because everyone's seen all of them. No one just sees Evil Dead. It's a retroactive symptom of everyone knowing Ash too well. But he, going back to what I was saying about the remake, is you are in a that's the reason why I think I like the potential addict narrative, because you are left with someone who is weak and ineffective, and he is weak and ineffective. And I think he speaks to what everyone actually knows what they would be like in this situation, because everyone goes like, oh yeah, I'd be a tough guy, I'd take care of it.
I'd be punching holes in the
well, I guess because everything's happening to him.
Yeah. And he's reacting to things. He's not smart. Like, and it's not in that.
He's not laying.
That's the best part.
Traps like fucking Home Alone.
Yeah. I mean, or even early Wes Craven movies where everyone is all of a sudden a booby trap expert.
Yeah.
Which I love, because like, to me, like, that's always him going like, oh yeah, well no, you've got to use what's around you, which is kind of interesting and intelligent and cool. But like he's. It's not even that he's unintelligent. It is actually in its way kind of more realistic, because how overwhelming is this scenario?
There's no life experience that you could have that would lend any way to help you deal with that situation.
Well, and like, everyone always loses track of the fact that like, he is supposed to be killing all the people he loves.
Yeah,
like, he's
exactly.
supposed to
They're
be,
not
like,
just sacks of meat.
And that's why it's fucking devastating when Linda starts speaking like her normal self and everything. When the Deadites are actually out in full force and they're fucking with him, it's heartbreaking.
It is. It's really sad, and he sucks.
Yeah. And like,
he's not prepared. Well, nobody would be. That's one of the things that I recognize. Like, you'd like to think you'd take charge, or you'd have a better idea of how to handle things, but like, no, you absolutely would not. This is a pretty like,
he's doing his best.
Yeah, he's doing his best.
Give him a fucking break.
Yeah. And I mean, I'd like to think I wouldn't get stuck under nearly as many shelves as he did.
No kidding.
Those shelves are heavy as fuck.
As it turns out.
Buzi, so like, I haven't talked about The Evil Dead with you like ever.
I know, yeah,
like ever. This is so. What's your take on The Evil Dead? Like, because
I love The Evil Dead. Weird hot take, not as big of a fan of 2, and I
thought you liked 2 way more than
no. I like 1 more.
Oh, so are we a room of 3 people who like Evil Dead more than Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, I'm a hardcore. Yes, we are.
I like just me being the
typical
contrarian. I love
so
the straightforwardness of 1.
Mm-hmm. I like the terror of 1.
Yeah, there's something raw about that, and like, some of the scariest stuff for me is stuff where you're put in the position of the Deadites as they're like creeping around, or even if they're like when they're in the trees. You know what I mean? Like the idea of them being the trees.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it's what are they doing out there?
Yeah, like,
there's and like I mean, we never get this again.
This movie.
The nihilism that exists in both. Well, I mean, first off, yeah, it's just grim. It's just very grim. But the Deadites and their motivations are so beyond our comprehension and are in a space that's so dark and
foreign, and yeah,
like why they keep and they keep like self-harming and all this stuff, and it's just like trying to wrap your head around their motivation is a horrible philosophical task. They're scary. They're really
scary. Because you're watching is that they're taking the form of people and doing things that no person would ever do, and you're watching all this shit happen. Like, you know, if you guys just start fucking like dismembering yourselves in front of me, I probably wouldn't leave the room because I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. I would just be stuck in this corner.
Yeah,
but like I think some of the scariest shit though is like where you're in the position of being first person watching people get chased, and you're like, I don't, because you most people don't always like when you're in that position that you get to see that, you know, it's like when you get to be the shark in Jaws, you know, you kind of see it. It's you're kind of terrified, but at the same time you're in control of that because you're in control of that situation.
Video game.
In general, if they do like POV very shots for Jaws, but like it's that idea of that you're the driving force of something, but you don't know what that force is, so it feels like you're being chased too. I don't know if that makes sense.
That's what's so fucking funny about the second one, though, is that he's just like a complete idiot, and he's just getting everything's happening to him.
Yeah, and I can appreciate it, but like it goes back to that, like the whole rawness of the first one is what makes it so fun and unique.
Yeah, the first one's the best
one.
And
the sound cues to like throw you off. And that score was really good.
Okay, so that's something we haven't talked about yet. Let's fucking talk about that for a second. So let's talk about this new score.
Okay. Had you guys heard it prior to?
I hadn't heard it, but I've seen the original so many fucking times that it was very jarring for me. Like I knew
I was in the same position. Yeah. I have to say I'm glad that I saw it. I'm looking forward to going back to the way it was.
Yeah,
though.
I think it wasn't offensive. I didn't hate the score. I just think it's unnecessary. I think they updated it for a modern audience that might not be as well versed in this movie as we are, because they definitely, like, the new score, like, it almost like courses you into knowing when the scares are coming.
You cues. It wants to help you along.
Like it's fucking loud.
It is. I have heard the score. I've had it for, as a matter of fact, tunes from the score made my like year-end list. Like I actually think that some of the additions are genuine, and I don't think Joseph Loduca's work is good across the board. I think a lot of his work is actually quite, like, I mean, I think it's gaudy and quite bad. But I really I like the two Evil Dead scores. I think are great. There's mainly good tracks on them that I think stand alone outside of the picture. I think they're really genuinely good soundtracks, and I really like the new one. I've been listening to it for a year and a half already. Some of those cuts, especially some of the more piano driven stuff, I think is actually really beautiful. Part of it's a little bit of the mix because it does come across as being very contemporary by comparison to the picture, because when you clean the picture up, like when it's with the 4K restoration visually, it didn't actually end up like taking me, like it wasn't clean to the point of being distracting. It's still a very dirty picture.
I just want to point that out. I love that the 4K wasn't so distracting. I was scared that it was going to be super clean. I'm like, wait a minute, of course it's not going to be that way. Sam Raimi didn't have the money to shoot this on a camera that could be restored that way.
That's the thing. That's the thing about a movie like this is it was such a cheap movie.
It's the same thing with Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Like even the 4K remaster of Texas Chainsaw Massacre still looks good. Because
for both of those movies, it gives you, all it does is really give you a little bit more texture, and it makes it like just a little creepier.
It'll brighten it up a little bit, like little bit, so you'll get to see.
Yeah, I didn't think that it was as noticeable. Like when I went and watched Alien, when you guys did the Alien 40th, there was times in there where I said that was the best.
Looks like a brand new movie.
Yeah, I was like, that's the best I've seen Alien look. Whereas this one, like I don't see it as much. Like it still looks good.
Alien is like, I think Alien is one of those movies that like can benefit from that, or like not even benefit.
I'm not trying to take anything away from Evil Dead though. I'm just saying like it was more noticeable to me watching Alien, where I can get out of the theater and be like, that was the best version I've ever seen of that. Versus like when I'm watching Evil Dead, I'm like, it looks polished, but like I'm not noticing anything extra.
You don't want that from Evil Dead.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so as a result of that, though, those two things, audio video, or audio visual rather, the visual is like peaked and is in good shape. It's in good enough shape, but not good enough shape that the audio didn't come across as being a little bit too shiny and new, I think. And so I struggled with it on that. From that perspective. Also, there was a couple of audio cues that they did things with that I thought were really odd. Like they dampened like one of the a very prominent scream in it was taken like right out, and I don't know why they did that. I thought that was really odd. But I think I'm really glad I got to see it in the theater, because now my comparison points for seeing this in the theater are 35 millimeter print and this new version. So I've really have had a chance to see two very, very different styles of this film. My definitive version is always going to include the original score. Yeah. I'm scared about what that is moving forward, because the reason why they did this, I don't know, like if you guys know this or not, but the reason why they re-recorded it is because the original score is tied up in some kind of legal struggle or something like that, and so they out of necessity re-recorded it. And like, cause we're in this big renaissance right now where they're re-releasing every single film soundtrack, which has been great, because it means you're not I was really sick of hunting down soundtracks, and in some cases
they get really fucking expensive.
They do. And so I'm happy that they're so much more accessible now. But
so is this the one that Waxwork released last year then?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the Necronomicon cover?
That's Evil Dead 2, I think. Isn't it the one where the...
I have the Evil Dead 2 one, but you keep going. I'll pull it up here.
The one that I have is like the new cover. I'm pretty sure it was Waxworks, but it was like a very colorful cover, and it had it was almost like sketches of all of a lot of the activity from the films. It was a really nice reissue, actually. But that version of the soundtrack, as I understand it, or at least as they've written about it, is going to be the only accessible one, which is a bummer to me, because I don't know if that means that I don't entirely understand what that means for future of reissues of Evil Dead. I don't know if the soundtrack is always going to be compromised or what the story is, but I love the original soundtrack. I have a CD copy of it. That's the best I've been able to do for tracking it down. And I spent too much money even on the CD. I spent a dumb amount of money to get that, because it is one of my favorite soundtracks. But it's
but at the end of the day, that's worth it for you. Because I can understand that niche wanting to have something where it's like, okay, it's just a CD, and there's nothing actually special about it.
Of this one?
Yeah.
But
okay.
But I'm willing to spend that money on that thing. Yeah, exactly.
And I did that quite a few years ago, and I haven't looked back.
I have that one.
That's Evil Dead 2, though.
Yeah. So, I don't have this one. Which
so that's Nightmare Reimagined. That is what we heard, and so they released that quite a bit in advance of the restoration.
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Hey? Yeah, and you know what? As a standalone listen, it's
pretty cool.
Rules. It's really good. And there's stuff that didn't even make it into the movie. So as if you guys dig listening to soundtrack music, highly recommend it. It's really good. But it stuck out to me. I just you know it too well, right? It's just
that's the problem when you know these movies so well, is that something like that is going to stick out really well.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for sure.
But either way, it's still fucking ruled to see it on the big screen. That was the first time for me seeing Evil Dead on the big screen, so that was awesome.
I don't have a ton on how are you supposed to say anything negative about it? Because it's obviously that we all enjoy it quite a bit.
Yeah, you're not gonna get that out of me. Yeah, I don't I can usually find something, and if somebody came in here and had something negative to say about it, I might concede that they
kill
have a point or whatever.
Yeah, right. I might murder them.
But but that's not, if that was their experience, I can't help them. It's the same when I tell somebody I find that movie really scary, and it kind of I watched it Home Alone the other night, and it kind of bugged me a little bit. It got under my skin, and they go, I don't understand that, and I just have to go, well, that's not for you to understand. That I get to keep having this piece of magic.
And that's the only downside that I'll say is that because Courtney and I, because Evil Dead is one of my favorite things in the world, so it's a mainstay in this household. We watch it at least once a year. And last Halloween, we watched it, and Courtney and I both agree that we're like, the original Evil Dead is one of the scariest movies. Like, till this day, like, it actually holds up as a scary movie. And then when we were watching it with an audience and with a bunch of our friends, it's a little less scary, but it's because it's so exciting because you're in a communal.
But you can't. I think once
it's not the movie; it's the community that you.
Once more people get involved, they can kind of change that kind of like energy that you're putting off about it, where it makes you like not appreciate it as much because you're like, you guys are ruining the tension in this. It's not me ruining the tension in this.
Well, and in that's. I mean, I know I'm probably bored of hearing this at this point, but like, I mean, as far as like in different disciplines, it's the same as like putting on a record that really, really gets to you in some place in your core and listening to it on like headphones or listening to it really loud while you're home alone.
And you can't, it's hard to share that with somebody else because you're like, you're not experiencing it the same way.
Let the dogs out by the Baja Man.
There you go. Was that a plug?
Yes.
Yeah. It's I mean, circumstances, I mean, that's one of the reasons why, speaking to the conversation about controlling your collection and everything like that, there's a reason we have these records around, there's a reason we have these movies around, because we can't count on optimal viewing experiences unless we're giving them to ourselves. We got to make sure we have the power over that, right? So that's what it comes like. That's why you have that copy of that movie at home, so when you're like, this is the perfect night to put on The Witch or whatever, no one can stop you from doing it, right? Like, even if Disney's got it in their vault, it's yours. Disney. And you can do what you want with it. Like, I mean, it's, there's a reason to have this. It's like having a wizard with all your spells. And
you can start your ritual. If we're going back, you can start your ritual again with that whole thing.
That'd be a good kid-friendly episode to call this episode "Fuck Disney."
Just I don't know. We already said "fuck Air Canada," so we might as well say "fuck Disney" too.
Well, John's going to be listening to this on a plane, so.
Oh, right.
Who does he fly with? Do we know?
Probably WestJet. Everybody flies with WestJet. Jesus.
All right. Well, this has been awesome. Thanks so much for coming on, Scott.
Oh, yeah. I had a blast.
This is ruled.
Whoa, we're not done here.
What's up?
We haven't answered our question of the week.
Okay.
We can't do a new question of the week.
You go.
People are so excited about question of the week, and you don't care.
Okay, you guys go. I'll try to think of something here.
Okay, so I asked at the end of the last episode, I said, give me someone who's going to do a reconnaissance, a renaissance of their acting quality.
Someone who's going to make a comeback in a big way.
So I had 2 answers from people. First one is from Darcy, from 3,000 Movies to Die Before You Watch. So his answer is, huzzah, question of the week is back, and if you ever take question of the week away from me again, I will sneak into your house at night and surgically remove your ball sack while leaving your testicles intact. See, people like question of the week.
Okay.
I think we're due for a Ben Stein-assance. I'm actually down for that.
Ben Stein?
Win Ben Stein's money? Nothing?
Bueller.
Oh, fuck. Ben Stein? That guy?
I think he could play a slasher, Dry Eyes. How about I scoop them out with this melon baller? Are you still alive? Well, that's a murder tool for that. Yeah. So that's the first one. Thank you, Darcy, for that one. Where the fuck else did I have one? Oh, and then Jeff texted me. Typical Jeff fashion, instead of listening to the fucking thing where I said don't spread out the messages everywhere, he just personally messages me. Because it's like, and then someone complains about like, well, you missed my answer for that week. It's like, because you spread it out everywhere. Yeah. And his answer is he would love to see a big triumphant return from John Cusack. And I said, I totally forgot about John Cusack. And then he said, it sounds like he's an asshole to work with.
I didn't know John Cusack left.
What has he been doing?
It's been a while. Yeah.
I think the last thing I remember seeing him in was he was in a Cronenberg movie like 5 or 6 years ago. He was in I can't remember Robert Pattinson. He was in
Cosmopolis?
Yeah, or no, the one after it. Map
of the Stars?
Yeah.
I haven't seen that one yet.
It was really good. It was I liked it more than Cosmopolis.
Yeah, I still haven't seen that one. Fuck.
I never liked John Cusack. I can't get down with John
Cusack.
I am
John Cusack, so in High Fidelity.
Do you have, Scott, do you have an answer for who you...
You know what? I do. I mean, this is almost cheating because I feel like this is also like an answer. This is I have a crush on somebody who I felt was never given her entire due and was very promising and then just never was never accepted.
Your answer is literally mine, but mine's a guy. So I was like
Mia Kirshner. who is largely unknown.
Why do I know?
Okay, so that's the thing. You're going to look her up, and you're going to see her in a bunch of stuff. You're going to go, oh, man, that movie, if you pay close attention, she's good in everything she's in. Now, she is a Canadian actress who came to prominence largely with, like, she worked with,
City of Angels.
City of Angels. That's where I found her.
Yes.
So she was in a movie called Exotica quite a few years ago, which is an early, oh, God, I'm forgetting his name, the name of the director.
Oh, she's in Party Monster?
She's in Party Monster, yeah. Smaller role, though.
Okay.
But another teen movie.
Yeah, she very prominent role in that movie.
Yeah, isn't she the girl with the glasses?
No, she's the girl. She's the mean girl who's always like talking dirty.
Yes.
She's probably most prominent from the TV show The L Word, which actually she started with like a pretty strong thread, and they kind of like destroyed her character over the course of the series. But she is somebody who like started like she was doing really well early on, and then she had a bunch of bad film decisions. Every time I check in with her again, she's still so good. She's just not in anything where she gains traction. Oh, she was in De Palma's. She was the Black Dahlia in Black Dahlia. Yeah. I every time she begins anything, I take her seriously immediately. I think she's so commanding. I just don't feel like she ever found an audience the way she deserved to. But like briefly when she was younger, people were taking her seriously. I'd like to see that happen for her. I'm always waiting for her to.
That's a prime
so
pick.
If she came back like now, what do you think like the mold of somebody else that she would be related to? I don't know if that's too like hard of a question. Like who would be her closest?
Well, see, that's the thing though. Is like that's why
or would she be in her own?
That's why it matters to me so much that because I think she has a really unique energy about her that makes her. Because one of my other answers would have been Stephen McHattie.
Okay,
another Canadian actor who I think, despite the fact he's been doing like like some really prominent. Well, I mean, but okay, what do I like to you guys? I say like prominent roles like in Pontypool. Like I mean, of course he rules in Pontypool, and of course like I mean he's amazing in everything he's in. But I mean he doesn't really get that level of respect that I think his both his comic and dramatic chops deserves. Like I think he's just got like his voice is unmatched. Like he's just everything about the guy. I love him.
Yeah, he's great.
Those are two people who I'd like to see. Well, and he's been in Mother. I mean, he was in Mother, but like no one's ever talking about like there's he's that creepy guy.
Yeah,
like it's great. But I'd love to see. Well, and like even Mia Kirshner, like maybe the biggest thing she ever did might have been like because she was a lead in Crow City of Angels, and I think she was really good in that movie, even though that movie obviously has its issues, like mainly
great score
issues.
Though. I remember it.
I can't. I the soundtrack. I love the soundtrack.
Yeah, that's what I'm
the
soundtrack is what I meant.
Oh yeah,
soundtrack of both the first two Crow movies were great.
Oh yeah, for sure. The second one gets buried by the fact that the movie was kind of not so hot. Shit, but but she's amazing in that movie. I think anyway. And both of them are like those are two people that I'd love to see finally get their due. Mia Kirshner's she's got a unique energy about her that she was in one of the 30 Days of Night movies, but I think
she's in the sequel.
Yeah, and she but I don't even think she had any lines. I think she was just a vampire. Yeah. She's never given she's got chops, man. She can really act her ass off. I love her stuff. I think she's great.
Okay, that's a great pick. That's a very great pick.
I got two. First one, Mia Khalifa. She really.
What the fuck, Buzi?
Who's that?
He's pretending like he doesn't know.
She's like number one trending on Pornhub for like 3 years.
Oh, okay.
She had a little bit of a falling of grace. Mitch really liked that. I had to throw it in for him. My actual pick is.
It's a terrible joke.
I know.
She didn't die or something.
No. She just
She
made enough money to leave that. My actual pick is Josh Hartnett. I've always loved Josh Hartnett.
Back to Black Dahlia.
Yeah. I think Josh Hartnett gets like shit on so much for just being like
he played the same character a lot.
Yeah, the quote unquote like good looking kind of dumb guy
with the stupid haircut.
Yeah, but like I think he can fucking actually act. I think he can show some actual fucking emotion.
Well, I loved The Faculty growing up, so
I want to change my answer. I don't know why this jarred me out of play. Justin Theroux.
Oh, the hottest guy alive.
He like, because he's in other, he's
The
in bigger
Leftovers.
movies. Oh, I've never seen that.
It's amazing.
Okay, so maybe he's more prominent than I realized, but like I remember seeing him in very short order in American Psycho,
Yep.
and then most importantly in Mulholland Drive,
Yep.
and also, I mean, I think that honestly, Inland Empire I think is one of Lynch's worst movies, but Thoreau's really good in
Yeah,
it.
and no one watches The Leftovers. So
Okay. So it wasn't something.
it's a really good show, but that no one watched.
Well, I think dude is awesome. I think
Yeah.
Justin Theroux is somebody who, like, he looked like his star was rising at one point.
He's
and then-
annoying because like my girlfriend wants to bang him, and I can't even get mad because I'm like, I get it. Like
You'd be there
great.
too.
Yeah, he's a good-looking dude.
Oh no, him in Mulholland Drive, like,
Yeah.
just like, I mean, just I wish, like, people don't recognize him for what's good about him. He doesn't get all the roles he should get. Justin Theroux rules.
Sweet.
Mitch?
Stephen Baldwin.
You.
Whoa.
Biodome. Come on, you guys. No, okay.
Casey
Affleck.
Wasn't he last seen like outside of like porn stores trying to convert people? Like he's like part of some weird Christian sect.
Yeah, so probably something like that. I'm gonna go like a legitimate one is Pat Healy. Pat Healy's a guy
Yes.
who I would like to see. He's someone who I've always thought would make it bigger, who just hasn't. And I think he deserves more roles. I think especially one of his most prominent roles is a movie called Compliance, where he's not even in the movie. Like he's in it a little bit, but it's mainly his voice. And I think he's just an incredible actor. But especially Cheap Thrills, Saving Private Ryan. Like he's plays even a small role in that. But I think Pat Healy's an incredible actor. Mainly Cheap Thrills and Innkeepers, stuff like that. I'd like to see him get more roles. That and Tom Green.
No, we're not fucking saying Tom Green. Okay, thank you for coming on, Scott. That was
Thank
great.
you for having me. I had a blast.
I don't know if you got any other announcements.
No, we're gonna figure out next month when next month comes. I'm not gonna say anything until then. But
So happy Halloween, everyone.
yeah, this was our Halloween episode. Thanks again for coming on, Scott. And we'll see you guys on the other side of spooky season.
Wait. I totally forgot. Every time I have a guest on, I always have to end up. I have like 10 to 15 seconds I can give you at the end. What's some music you want me to play at the end? Just like like your wrestling outro. What do you want to walk out in the sunset playing?
Rolling by Limp Bizkit.
The outro to Exit Everything by Rowland S. Howard from Teenage Snuff Film.
Yes.
Okay.
Sounds good. Okay. All right. We'll see you guys next week on the Tear Table.
Hey guys, thanks for sticking around till the end of the episode. Today's question, something that I want people to put a little bit more thought into. It's something that I can actually see myself and Mitch having a bit more of a debate about is where do you think horror is going to be in the next 5-10 years? Like, what's the next big craze? I think that'll be a very interesting conversation. So, you know, like, let me know. Are zombies coming back? Are we gonna get? I don't know. There's tons of different things, but the basic idea is like, you know, what's the next big thing?